Just got the notification that we're live.
I'll shut up. What an order of magnitude?
It's happening right now, actually. Kind of interesting. So, Sean, you had a question?
Yeah, like, because I was in another group and I presented the Parat papers and I read the abstract. And right away, the first question was, can you explain what an order of magnitude is?
Oh.
In simple terms. And I'm like, I'll ask Neil.
It's actually real simple. Just add another zero. It's basically 10 times, like if you say something is like 9.3 times 10 to the 23rd, an order of magnitude would be times 10 to the 24th.
That's one order of magnitude.
Yep.
So you're just going up with the exponent one digit?
Just the exponent just goes up another digit, yes. So that is basically how you would explain. So when something is like 15 orders of magnitude bigger, you can understand that that's like 15 billion or trillion times more. Like, so you can get an idea of what that means by size, an order of magnitude.
So, well, each exponent jump then, if let's just
it's
say
10
it's
times
1
bigger.
to 2.
Yeah.
It's 10 times for each.
Yep, because that's the exponent is times 10 to the whatever. That's how you would, he breaks, like if it's like, you would know it's 6.3 times 10 to the third is 6,300. Times 10 to the 6th is 6.3 million. Oh.
Well, for instance, Andrew Hall explains it very well when he suggests that the sun is being powered by 10 billion amps, and the Earth is receiving 10 million amps, and that's one order of magnitude.
Actually,
difference.
It's not. It's 3.
It's 3?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My bad.
That's okay, though.
So for each order, you're actually multiplying by 10. 10 times greater.
Pretty much.
Each order of magnitude, okay. So then to say the sun is in the ancient past would be operating at 1 to 2 magnitudes greater than what it is now, but multiplied by 10.
Or 100 if it's 2, yes. Which is fair to say. I would agree with that. In the past, that it would be like you would look at the aurora, 100 or 1,000, or I mean 10 or 100 times bigger would be fair to say. Yeah. Like but way more current, like 10 to 100 times more current going through the Earth. Yeah, that's a lot more. A lot of crazy things. But anyway, we're here for another reason. We're here to celebrate our good friend Robert, who's recently put out a paper on upheaval dome and gone on a geology tour with our friend Bruce, who's actually here as well. So we have not only Robert, we have Bruce, Chris, Buddy, Sean, Chris again, Matthew, Duffster. We have James and Rick. Welcome, guys. I have a little thing that we do here. Do the little intro. We're going to obviously try to meet a lot of people out there on the web again who are watching. But Robert, can you before we get started, do you want to give a little brief of what's going to be going on, what we're going to see?
Yes, we're just going to be discussing the paper that I put out last month on the possibility of electric discharge causing the crater at Upheaval Dome. We'll also be covering some footage of the recent EU Geology tour we had with Andy Hall, Bruce Laybourne, who's on the panel here today, Andy Fitz, my friend Dusty Oberg, who's new to the group, my father, and I believe it was Bruce's friend Kevin, who I forgot his last name. I'm sorry, but he was on the tour as well. And and don't forget Larry White, he was there as well. We hit the sites of 9 Mile Canyon, Three Fingers Canyon as well. We hit that at the last moment. And Black Dragon Wash, they hit a Dinosaur National Monument. I believe it was another site, a Moki Marble site that we found. It was actually right behind where the parents' house is, where you stay.
Wow!
Yeah, of all places on the planet, they found one just
right there.
2 miles back on the back trail toward the mountain.
I still have sometimes have dreams waking up there and seeing that mountain in the distance right in front of the house, and it still sort of feels like a majestic morning. You know what I mean?
That's the hill. I mean, I'm talking about the mountain, like you from the highway. If you're coming, then you see Blacktail. It's actually further towards that mountain, so you have to go back further like into the back country to find it. But yeah, that'd be actually the mountain that you're talking about is just starvation reservoirs on the other side of that. So that's just a little cable tower where they run the lines. But it is still majestic because you get the sunrise there because it's from the east. It is beautiful. Yes, I love it up there.
Well, I'll get my little intro going, and then we'll get right to that.
Sounds good.
Welcome to the September 29th edition of The Electric View. I'm Neil Thompson. Today we are talking to Robert Hawthorne about his new paper on upheaval dome and his recent geology tour with our good friends across the American Southwest. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and all that other wonderful stuff.
Welcome back. All right. So, well, I'm Robert. Without further ado, then let's get to it. You had some footage for us, and
yes,
of
I
course
have some
the paper
footage
itself.
Here.
So,
yes, I guess we could go on the paper at first because it's the older news, and then we'll catch up with the fresher stuff.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Keep everybody waiting. Yeah. Always have them wanting more. So, without further ado, here I guess I will share the screen. Start sharing. Here we go. Can everybody see here?
Perfect. Got it here.
So here's a picture of the EU Geology site tour. This is right outside of Three Fingers Canyon, and I believe the shot was taken by Larry White. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
There we go.
There we go. So there's we've got Andy Fitz there, the senior, Bruce Laybourne, Bruce's friend Kevin, I forgot his last name, I'm sorry, myself, Andy Hall, and my friend Dusty Oberg. And I believe Larry's taking the shot because he had taken a shot with actually Michael Steinbacher's camera. I found out that he had inherited.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I actually had to take a shot of Larry with the camera earlier at the Pinnacles area. Well, I'll show some footage of that too. But I don't have the actual the shot I have of Larry with Michael. But it was so cool to actually hold it in my hand. I felt like it was like a ominous moment for myself. But yeah. But this is outside of Three Fingers Canyon because they wanted to show Larry Fitz the site that we had seen with that fused wall with all the medium, and it's kind of right back behind here down on the creek bed. If anybody ever wants to go to the site. Yes. And interestingly enough, there's two more in Black Dragon Canyon that are even longer, and it's actually just like pebbles and like it's just concrete with little pebbles ground into it, and it's sitting right on top of a layer of slick rock, and the slick rock is actually looks like it's been fused into the material itself because it's actually been leached in, and it's like spider webbed and it's like cobwebbed into the other medium. So it's a weird formation, and sadly enough, my camera had died right before I took pictures of that, but I got other footage of Black Dragon Canyon as well. But that's just for something for us to get back to the next time around as well, I think. Well, there's always something to be found in these tours,
I remember that when we got in there, and everything was just the worst when your battery is at 15% and the screen goes dark, and I couldn't see. It was still on, but I couldn't tell what I was recording. And I remember, and that's after we found that wonderful rock that was out there, and that the petrified tree just lying beneath the waterway.
Right, that's right on that same wall. It was like reaching all the way out, and then again, you didn't want to stand too close because what we saw was above that. Oh,
I know. Just, it just gives you a horrifying
we had
feeling.
To smack it with a hammer anyway.
I know. It's like, okay, I'm going to take my life in my hand. There's nothing that, it was so intimidating, the amount of material that was above your head that you saw the angle it was on. You're like, there's no way that I would survive if this is coming down on top of me. Anyway, just enough to give you a sense of humility, I guess.
Yes, I actually got to post some things from my phone here because a lot of these pictures haven't set yet. And I thought I'd put them over on my thumb drive, but I didn't. They're still sitting on my phone. So as I'm talking here, I'll try to post a few of the newer ones.
Of course, sure.
I'm going to pull up Dusty. my friend Dusty took a lot of film because he had a better battery than me. So I'm gonna try to pull up his post here and
All right. We'll get to know more.
Introduced him. He's my friend. He runs his own business, so he would, or otherwise he would be involved in these conversations more. He is actually going to be involved in the geology tours a lot more coming because he's a good guide. And he worked as a long haul trucker through all these back roads, so he knows the country very well. And when I was talking to him about the geology, he got really excited about it and has become involved in it. So we're going to be utilizing his talents and knowledge of the areas in the future tours.
Yeah, I'd get fired if I was a truck driver. I'd be stopping all the time.
Well, he didn't really stop. He just had to manipulate through all these areas.
It's kind of interesting that his last name is Purple.
Oberg. Yeah.
Auberge.
Oh, there.
Yeah, it means purple.
This is one of the sites that he has seen outside of just a vertical formation coming straight up out of the ground. It's about 30 feet tall, I think. If you're standing, you could stand about at this height.
That's one of the. Is that a dike?
I think it's a dike, and he said there's several more that go up and down around the area, but it's just right up out of the area, and really nothing could explain why it's just like that because it's just plant life around it. No, not really a.
Oh no! Well, this would have been made.
Are you thinking man-made?
No.
I don't think it's man-made. That's what everybody thinks it's a conundrum out there, and I thought maybe that
natural
it was
formation.
It was like a dike, and he's like, oh, yeah. That's why this is one of the things that got him sucked into the electrical geology theory, because this always, he lives in this area, he walks these trails a lot, and this always has perplexed him, and he's like, run it by me. So we told him about some of the electrical theory.
Do you have a picture of it from another angle?
What's that?
Do you have a picture of it from another angle?
I can try to find some here because let's see here. I got this in.
It's model. It's one piece, isn't it?
It is. And then several more. Why am I always jumping?
Don't worry.
Yeah, it's that's what I try to clean up my computer because it's been acting funny, and it was running good, and then now it's all starting to go right when I need it.
I think I'm about to hit 4 years, so, that I've managed to survive without having to do a reset. So, knock on glass, I guess. Yay, he says. Sean Edward, yay.
Well, these are the sites. I guess we'll go from Google Earth. We'll just shoot with these ones because this is outside the Dinosaur Monument. This is called the Blue Mountain. This is the area right here where the marker is, Neil. This is the highway pull-off site that I've shown you, and it has all that ebbing mountain waveforms that you saw that with the dike that was leading up to it. This would have been the dike right here.
I know exactly where we are. This is when I was describing, because we were describing that dike that came down from that one. Yes, that one. And then there's the view. Yeah, and you can see the way the land was basically pulled together in uniformity, and because of the fact that it's not layering or anything like that, it was hard to deny the electrical implications of that.
Right. So, and then from here, this is like outside of Dinosaur National Monument. This is where we wanted to park some of the tour here, because this is actually what we want to do for the geology tours is actually this area here for just the intermediate people that want to just, stick close to the road and maybe venture off a little bit. And then in case in any scenarios for like people that have medical issues, that Bernal is right around the area so that we're all covered there. And we don't have to go off-road too much unless we have advanced people, because Three Fingers is really out of the way, and you have to be, self-reliant to be out there.
Oh, I know. I would feel. I feel. So we need jeeps. Yeah.
Focus on this area. National Park right there. There's a river tour. We have.
So that's where that is up there.
Andy Hall.
No, I just want to know at the north part. You said that's where the park is.
This is the beginning up, or right past this. This I think it's a hog's back, because you have like a monocline here with the.
You notice that feathering on it. That feathering looks very similar to Mars. The way that,
you got every feature that Andy Hall talks about all the way out in Three Fingers and on the San Rafael as well, but it's not so far off the road, and it's safer for people that would be wanted, for anybody that could,
it's okay. You can say for people who have to use canes because they suck at walking.
I say all skill levels of hiking, or camping, because, you got to have some kind of self-efficiency to go on the tour like the Three Fingers or Black Dragon.
Well, also we're gonna have to be a little bit more responsible too. Next time we start going in some of these places,
Exactly.
we're definitely going to have to make sure that we have not only first aid kits in the car, but probably with us, and maybe some anti-venom would be good too.
Loads of water, yes.
Be good, good call.
This is kind of the area we're trying to focus on for future tours for everybody when they come out. Plus, it's right off the side of the road, so you can stop there. There's places to camp for everybody. They can actually get inside it. The fossil site from the national park site is there, so you have the quarry, everything, and then there's a river raft tour, so we can actually get into that and have guided tours with that as well. So that's what we're trying to focus on for.
Actually, I do have some footage of that exact scene that we have in my video there. I'll throw it up later of this exact place because we were standing there and I happened to get some shots. So. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
And then this, I believe, this was the Moki Marble site. I'll go into that from this site here because I have it on. This is Duchesne, Utah.
Weren't we going to start with your paper first? Here.
Oh, if you want to start there, yeah.
I think Matthew was like, we should start with your paper.
I got sidetracked there for a second.
I was like, where are you going for this paper?
Yeah, we got so sidetracked there.
Okay. Well, now we're a little bit broken our mental thing. Any good questions from the people there, Mike or Gus or Rick? Any of them?
Nothing yet. They're just kind of checking in and saying hi.
Okay.
There's some Star Trek chatter going on that's pretty interesting, but nothing is rising to the occasion of a question yet.
Friggin' Trekkies and their green-blooded bastardos. All right.
Trekkies will be Trekkies.
You're talking to one of the worst. All right. Okay. Well, then, yeah. Let's get to the paper there and take a peek at what because we're going to go talk about basically Upheaval Dome. Did you go there this time, or did you?
We did not go to Upheaval Dome this time. No, we stayed further north. Like I said, we did hit the Dinosaur National Monument, that Moki Marble site that we had. Larry and I hit the pinnacles because we were waiting for everybody else to transit in, and then we hit Three Fingers and Black Dragon.
I've actually never seen the Moki Marble site myself. I found that one geode there out in the middle of the riverbed, but that's it.
Yes, you did, and that was right on the riverbed, wasn't it?
Yeah, crazy. Sitting there, like someone broke it open for me too. Very kind of them. Sitting on top of my computer right now.
Yep.
Anyway, go on. Yes, let's take a look at this paper. Basically, obviously, if anyone doesn't know, Upheaval Dome is a asteroid site or comet strike or uplift or blah 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 or blah 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 or blah blah blah. Like no one has a really good explanation. That's one of the things that makes the electrical interpretation so compelling because it almost seems obvious if you start studying electrical excavation and see things getting ripped up like this, valleys, you could see this as being a negative strike, perhaps, touch point, maybe something like that.
Yes.
But I'll let you go further.
Okay. So this is the site here from Google Earth. I'm just going to sit there, and anybody that wants to, log in as well, they can just type in Upheaval Dome. So we'll all be on the same page here. But we'll go to the paper here. And the title is Electrical Discharge, Not Impact, Caused the Formation of Upheaval Dome, Canyonlands National Park, Utah. David Brown actually narrated this paper very well. You can go to his site at Electric Universe Eyes on YouTube, and I like the work. I had
no idea he did that.
Yeah, he did. He asked to do it because he was doing Andy Hall's work, and I felt really honored. So it was like, go ahead.
No, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
It also feels weird that sometimes it's like everyone expects me to know. Like it's like no, dude, I cannot monitor every single electric site in the entire planet like by myself. Right. But I'm glad that he did, and now I have to go find that and make sure it's put up there for you because it definitely deserves something.
And then Shifu actually, and I guess you with your influence with No Shitcast, they got me on there, and they did a little interview on me as well on this paper. So it's the word spreading. I'm pretty happy with the progress it's made already, and then we're going to try to get it out there on the panel with Bruce's program next year in Orlando.
Well, and I hope that if I actually can make it down there, that'd be just fantastic. I would love to do that, and hopefully, as you can imagine, just seeing how work like Andy's, Bruce's, yours, and mine mesh together. And I mean, you can see the
Right.
same effect very clearly.
I'd love to come as well, Robert. That'd be an awesome event. You know, just to participate and help or
Oh, we'd
whatever.
all have to go. It'd be
Oh, right.
good, yeah.
Yeah, because we're actually going to be like trying to get Bruce's idea for this panel is, I guess, plasma tectonics, and they've actually got through his associations and affiliations, they've given him the room for a panel if we can come up with 5 papers. So we put out a call on the geology site for it, and we can talk about that later. But we'll get to this paper here for now. But it's one of the put a little teaser out for him.
Well, I guess this is just fantastic. I'm very excited. Anyway, let's hear it. Or let's not. Well, not just the briefs, of course. Obviously.
So basically, the abstract focuses on that they're. If you go back to upheaval, if anybody does go to the site at Upheaval Dome, there is 2 current theories that are on a placard there to state that the possible formations for this, and according to the research that was available to them, is that it was a salt dome that has either pushed up from a salt vein that was underneath it, floated up to the top, and then completely eroded away, or it's a impact site, and the science today is more leaning on the impact site because they found shocked quartz, which is their telltale sign, because they say that only an impact of such forces can cause pressures to cause quartz to be fractured. So that's like what they look for, and I think Gene Shoemaker was one who discovered that kind of process. I've heard from somewhere where they attributed that to him. And so we came across a sample about in mid 1990s of a rock that we thought was from that era we thought was a meteorite, and we wanted to get it out there. So we took it to several scientists. We took it to the University of Utah. They didn't really know what it was. We took it to BYU. They couldn't tell what it was just from just looking at it. They really didn't do serious tests on it. But they kind of suggested from BYU for us to talk to Gene Shoemaker, because he happened to be speaking there at that night in one of their auditoriums. So we came that evening, got to meet Gene Shoemaker, and he wanted to spend some more time on this, because apparently Upheaval Dome was his pet project after the comet, discovering the comet and then being like the top guy in the field at the time. Everybody wanted to get a hold of him to speak.
Of course. So, I mean, he was just
he actually took time out of his way. And I think in February, he came up, and it was actually during the middle of a snowstorm. My father and I were down in Moab waiting for him in a hotel. He came up from Flagstaff in the middle of a snowstorm to come see this rock. And as soon as he got there, he took his penknife out and did a little scratch test on it. And he said it's calcite. And you got to see now that his face just dropped. I mean, he had looked so pissed, And he did all that, and we were like, well, no, it's not calcite, because this rock really is an interesting sample, because it has like a weak hardness if you do a penknife test to it, but it has a lot of silicates in it. So but the way it's composited form,
it's really a sphere connection that it seemed to have, and we saw those spheres in Sapphire, I think, yes, between the cracks.
Talking about spirals as well, and in fact, this paper talks about it as well, because they were saying that lightning can actually cause the same pressures and the temperatures to shock quartz. And
yes, it can. Yeah.
Yes, and it can also fuse like volcanic ash into glass. So they said that left the spherules that were in some of the volcanic ash, where some tests were conducted here. It's mentioned, I can't remember which one. I know the University of Pennsylvania with Rado Gier, his name. He's the one who actually found out that lightning can actually shock quartz in the laboratory. I think they used a simulation where they had a setup of granite and set up with the parameters of a lightning bolt, and it actually, through simulation, left traces of shock quartz. And here's the sample of the rock right here in the picture. These are the spherules that we're talking about at X magnification from a sample that's similar to this one. It's not actually off of this sample, but you can see what we're talking about. This is you can see where you could take a pen knife and you can just flake these bits off from where they're fused together. But if you try to put it in an acid test, it takes almost all weekend long for it to dissolve down, and you have to break it up still with a glass rod. And if you also try to cut it with a diamond blade, like we were trying to like make start pieces out of this so we can market this rock, and it wears a diamond blade out in a week, so it has like a hardness more of an 8 when you're trying to cut through it, because it's primarily silicates with a little bit of calcite holding this stuff together.
That's the in between the cracks. Yeah, so it's a conglomerate material that seems to well, just clearly does not seem to belong. And just the figure one picture alone shows some pretty interesting stuff.
Right. There are a few samples that we have that are interesting because they have filaments that are woven in between these glass beads, excuse me, that look like glass hair. It's just like a string of glass that's just woven through in there. I could let me see if I could pull this up on my drive here. I know I have this one on my drive, but in the meantime, the filaments that I had taken it to the Utah Valley University, which is UVU, and which is a little bit suburb of BYU, and spoke to Dr. Paul Bybee there. And when I was mentioning this to him, I showed him that picture, and he had said that those kinds of formations had never been seen before. So I was really excited. So every time I see these filaments, I try to take pictures of them. Are here. So you can see this one right here. There's one. I've actually shown you this before in one of the original, when we started doing the geology remarks on the electric view.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yes, the filament came up, and this is actually, I think, a 2x. And there's another shot here where there's others. I was just taking random shots of samples here.
I remember when we were taking some of these shots.
There's one. Yeah, there's kind of a filament, but it's not really good resolution there. I was kind of working with the lens because you could imagine with all these spheres and everything, you can only get a good resolution on a certain point, and then everything else kind of get blurs out because this is like a 3-dimensional terrain here.
Oh, of course, yeah. You're seeing at depth, and you can only see a certain distance. Oh, yes, it makes sense.
And it's hard to focus on one point, but there's that filament. I'm gonna try to get a larger shot of it, as we can see here.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, and I think the next one is a little bit larger than that. Yes, there we go.
Oh, so, that is ideal. It almost looks like
you don't see there's more woven in through here, but they're just kind of fused in with the material. You can see pigmentation, and it looks similar to this. So I'm assuming that it's the same material, but just more fused than this. It's just kind of.
If I was to compare this to something, it would be those the iron pipes of China. If that makes sense, where there was pipes that looked like they were going through the solid rock, and no one knew how they were being made, and they're of different sizes, and of course some of them are crushed in the middle, which makes perfect sense if they were subjected to electricity that created these pipes, just like you would create veins of quartz or gold. Of thing. But obviously, because of its cohesiveness and the way that magnetism would affect it, they made pipes instead, which
and they would crush down on a Z-pinch, right?
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, that's just interesting because you don't usually see that every day, and it's things like that that make the common geology sort of go, huh? And I like those little falsifications. Please go on, though. Let's talk about this.
Then the paper goes on to. Right, and then the paper goes on to mention mention of fulgurites and how lightning causes silicates to form or rocks to form in the glass. And here's the mentioning of the lightning causing the spherules of geological deposits throughout occurrence of volcanic lightning by Kimberly Gennaro.
I'm probably going to have to steal your citations too. It's like, let's just go steal.
Yep, there we go. We'll put them all in there because we're going to try to make this as legit as we can, I guess,
Well, that's the thing, because I know what it says in engineering terms, and I could write down the formula. Well, who said that happens on that?
Right.
Okay, well.
I'll even leave them up here on the screen for a while. People can actually take screenshots if they'd like, and then we'll get everything, logistically handled out. And then the paper goes on for how to electrical cratering is actually formed without necessities for impacts. And this is focusing heavily on Jacob Gable's, and we'll go on I took a few shots of his.
I like how you had to put electro-terravision right there in quotes, right in the middle, in the same paragraph as Scientific American. That's great.
Yep. Yep. Because I wanted to place that. It's all about placement sometimes.
Yeah, they're like, oh, Scientific American's great, Electric Television. Oh, well, he said Scientific American up above. He must be fine then.
Right.
Yeah.
I know normally, like they'll show pictures at the placard of the upheaval dome of a rock coming in through space, and they'll show the little diagrams of, like, you know, the shock wave in front of it showing it's moving, and then they'll show the next picture of it hitting the stone, impressions, pushing stuff out with little arrows, and then the repercussion of it coming back and throwing stuff out like a splash in a mud puddle, and that's on their placard for their impact theory. But these pictures show basically where most of us have seen Jacob Gable's work, where you're just seeing like the flat, undisturbed sand, and then all of a sudden the current kicks up and starts, you know, twisting its way through and drilling a hole right, and just perfect crater right in there.
And that right there, by the way, if figure 4, almost, I mean, just right there, if it stopped at that point, that's like a perfect bullseye crater, isn't it? Like you can even see the levels. You can see the levels to it, everything. It's just great.
Yep.
You don't get to see those every day.
Slightly hexagonal.
I noticed.
Yeah, and watching Jacob's videos, the current is running, and then all of a sudden, poof! It's a crater.
Yes,
it happens instantly. I mean, not you know,
that's
like
the transistor action that we're referring to of these forces. Sometimes when they actually do the breakdown, they'll store energy and then pop. Because these are fields, right, and the fields can store energy, as of course, well, especially you know there, Robert. So.
Well, plasmoids, right?
No, I just meant a capacitor or an inductor. Just a magnetic field that is being around one of those things is holding energy. Yeah, you get the.
And I've learned now that we
go ahead.
The power to load, you get that recoil. You know that.
Yes.
Inductive and it shows
kick.
Demonstrate right when he cuts the power off. Whenever you start to see the lights go out and everything, you see a big blast of material coming up here.
Well, yeah, it basically has all the energy held in the field that's still powered, even though he's turned down the voltage is still there. And then as soon as you turn it off, it must cool out. It has to sort of like let the magnetic confinement go, and in so doing, it loses its magnetic field strength. That is actually energy. So it goes and creates a whole whack of, well, I guess, devastation across the landscape. I guess it's
the Hounds of Baskerville.
There you go.
Release the hound.
Release the hound.
It might be a little early, but we should also talk about like the hexagonal nature of these craters. And you had the picture up earlier, and like how hexagons really. I've talked about it in the past, but I've been doing some research on really it's spherules that pack together that create hexagons. It's very interesting, like how the boundary layer actually gets created within these events, and even like when something is moist and then it dries up, it also creates these kind of boundary layers. But like, what is actually happening? Sorry, go ahead.
I'd even say that
as it etches outward. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
I was thinking that I was just thinking I was going to agree with you there, because the thought just occurred to me that when you look at the poles of like Saturn and stuff, you see those storms that are in almost, we would say, spheral form. We can only see them in a ring, but there's probably a ring current going through them on the top and bottom. So you'd have a spheral there, and there are 6 of them, and then you have a hexagonal shape. So there's something there that I think relates to the other.
Actually, I think the same thing applies in if you think about Jacob Gable's picture there of the hexagonal crater that he's making. We're seeing the middle very easily, but when it's in motion, we see it jump around a lot. Now, this is that there's probably 6 or 7 little, like around that, there's probably 6 little Birkeland currents around that one that you can see. They're weaker, but they're probably doing some of the carving as well. Remember, you have a center column of the charge, and then you'll have around the main charge.
That's actually a really smart way to explain it.
And as you get closer to the ground, you're going to have more and more confinement. This is what we notice when we're doing electrical discharge machining, that there's a direct relationship between how far away it is and how much the end will pinch down because of its own magnetic confinement. Because gases will do that. I mean, you pump more current through it, you've got more magnetic confinement. So if you're trying to pump 100 amps into something, it'll get tighter and tighter and tighter. Now we're seeing the center of the discharge, but not the other 6 around it, I think. Anyway.
Right.
Actually, I want to say looks a lot like Copernicus crater on the moon. You can even see the hexagon at the very top of this, right above that flat red line. Okay.
No.
Right, yeah,
That's
right,
good.
but
I wouldn't know that otherwise.
Right at the top of that red line, if you go up to the middle, right to the middle of the red line, yeah, and then draw two, you'll see the angle is 100. Yeah, there you go.
Chris from Take
like
Back
two-
Space, ladies and gentlemen, obviously has looked a lot at the moon, way more than most of us. So,
And I
Right.
scribble on
The
top
only
of the
reason I
craters
found this one-
constantly. Yeah.
you do.
The only reason I thought of this.
I was gonna.
Shut up. Shush. It's okay. I want to hear Robert for a second.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
The only reason I thought of this one was because recently I was going through another site where I saw somebody film a supposedly a lightning strike on some slick rock, and it was about as wide as a basketball because it was like a twig laying next to one of the other shots. So, but it also had a like similar hexagonal pattern, but with the two of the arms almost blown out, kind of like this. And that's kind of like where I came across this. This is the strike here. This is just like you said, you could probably fit a basketball right here. So that's just to give you some scale. It's a blown up shot. There's others.
Is this
not?
Is this a landscape or is this just a small thing?
This is just like I said, this whole crater here, you could fit a basketball in. So you could actually put your foot in this and stand there. And it's like a lightning strike on of slick rock that just came up out of the.
I honestly would assume that that's a feature on Mars.
Right.
Actually, if you pull up Aristarchus crater, you'll see these similar types of stratification features too. Like some of these craters
there we
have
have
sharper
scales of
edges.
magnitude, ladies and gentlemen.
There are scales of magnitude. Is that what we're talking about right there? Thank you.
Well, I was just gonna suggest that there are two different ways of creating craters. One from the charge from the ground, and another one from the charge from the air or sky.
Actually,
right?
It's a misconception. I think that that is the case. There is deposition. That's usually what happens. You get positive versus negative, but in most cases, a lot of them are both at once in many cases, because you'll have areas which were
AC current, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, you'll have some going like pulling from the middle, but also coming down and around the sides, and that's where you have things like
that's the
Colorado
arc that you're talking
Plateau
about that
or the
edges
Utah
around the outside.
Well, you can get up like basically the Talwashar volcano on Io. It comes up in the middle. It's pulling up and depositing around the edges. Get my meaning?
Right. Yeah.
That's all. I mean, if you're trying to just, I mean, as much as I would like to think that even I can go, and we're classifying them like I'm trying to lay down a geological toolkit, it's still not even something that we can say that we're so at the beginning. I mean,
well,
we're at like the 1700s. Like that's how it is at the beginning we are sometimes.
I'm just imagining that the charge is similar to lightning from the ground to the cloud and from the cloud to the ground, that craters are formed in the same manner, that a charge builds up in the ground and reaches out to the environment above it, or cloud layer, or
you're not actually entirely wrong. In supercells,
one
that does
comes
happen,
down from the outside down into the ground. That's the way I'm envisioning it.
It all has to do. Well, the weird thing is that even though the voltage is only 500,000 volts to the ionosphere, the charges in some of these cells, as Andy has pointed out, can get extreme, and likely because of this.
Yes, orders of magnitude.
But there you go. Well, there you go. Right. Yes. And so we have to sort of respect the way that maybe sunspots are working in a similar fashion, and we're starting to see voltage drops across them. I mean, we're, like I said, just beginning to explore this subject, and as even when 20 years from now, when we think that we've got it, we're still only going to be like handing it from like we're still in the 1800s. You know what I mean? We can go pretty fast, but they have a lot more of voluminous text to work with, and a lot more people doing it. Certainly not something you're going to immediately take over, but the fact that we're even trying to. The fact that, I mean, this is what we're looking at right here, as Robert is basically pointing out, is this new IMCIC 2020.
I just want to mention one quick thing about two different feature sets of crater formations. You have central peaks, right, that are residuals, that are kind of the uplift right in the like bullseye craters, but then you also have craters that are flat floors with tiny what they call craterlets. but actually looking at it and looking at Jacob Gable's stuff and David from Electric Universe Eyes, you see that actually these could be vent holes, and they're usually offset. So I think it's very interesting that like central peaks like uplift are really always dead center, and then you have tiny little craterlets like in Mare Crisium or Posidonius or any of these flat floored, still hexagonal looking features. You have tiny little offset vent holes.
We should also, of
just a
course,
note.
not display the fact that a lot of these things have flat floors because debris has filled them up. Over time, as more and more dust has zapped the moon,
I'm still on the fence about that. I'll be honest. I don't know. Like you see the 3D reconstruction of all that, but you wonder if like really it just kind of like melted in place. Like I don't know.
Well, no, I was referring mostly to in the images on Mars, where you can tell that certain craters near Valles Marineris were just buried, by the debris.
Right. Sure.
That's all.
Well, not only that, we see the dust devils ramp up every time our magnetosphere touches Mars, or some cosmic object like an asteroid or a comet comes by it, and like I think it was last year in 2018, there was a comet that flew above Mars, and they contacted and created some dust storms on Mars too. So yeah, I could see dust filling craters. Yeah.
All right. Anything on the view there, Rick? Comments? Anything happening there?
No, nothing on the Discord, and we're just chatting about.
Ben is not swallowing MSM, and neither is Michael Wise.
I think most of the people.
Michael Wise had a question.
Oh.
Yeah, he wanted to know if anyone ever heard of the tennis racket effect in association with the Earth flipping, not the poles flipping.
Guess not, then.
I don't think so. No.
No. St. Louis Arch had also a comment. He said several years ago, I did a flight seeing tour of the Canyonlands while in the area. Oh. It was explained that upheaval dome is related to salt dome collapse several miles to the east of the Arches MP. Meh.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yes. Meh. Yes. It's a boring. I mean, the explanations are terrible. I mean, look at the landscape, how it's been just right here in this picture. Anyway, Robert, go on, please.
Can we Google the effect, or is that something that we just moved past? Never mind.
No, go ahead.
What's up?
I was saying, can we Google the tennis racket effect? Because we just heard it, and all of us just didn't hear about it.
No, it's true, but I didn't want to interrupt his thing. I figured we would catch up.
It's in the middle of a presentation. Yeah. It's worth going to later.
I'm not going to stop as soon as we're done. Well, I want to go back and find that out.
I just asked him on. I just asked him on YouTube to elaborate on the tennis racket effect for us. So.
All right, well, go on, Robert, then. We'll, if one of you can search it there in the background, let us know.
Right. We're going to move on here. We're going to go off into the footage with the geology tour here.
That's what I want to see, yes.
Right on. So this is these shots are taken by my friend Dusty Oberg. We're going to go through here, and this is all, I believe this is inside the Three Fingers. Looks like a part of Three Fingers. Don't have any contrast. Oh, yeah, so it is Three Fingers.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. So
hey, there's no water there now.
There is barely any water. It was all dried up. So there's Kevin, my father, Andy Fitz, Andy Hall, myself, and this is that erosion area that we were talking about, and right outside the what I call the Dragon's Uvula. This is a big strike that's got petroglyphs all over this wall. And,
yeah, we have a. The very first video I actually did, we have some good video shots of that.
Perfect introduction to this whole canyon here, and then the chevrons that we climbed are just right around this corner here, and the second one to the right is the one that Neil and I climbed. So whenever we start getting people out here, it's the perfect introduction to this whole canyon. Is just pretty much everything you want.
Most importantly, there's shade and.
Shade, yes.
Well, what catches my eye is the patina on the rock, all that burning on the rock.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of that.
Actually, that's very true, and you can gauge how old some of the petroglyphs are. You can tell some of them were made many years after other ones. And there's a lot of I don't want to say Mormon symbolism, but you know those three spheres connected thing. I saw that here on these rocks. I find that very interesting.
Yeah. That image you're talking about is a drawing by Philo Dibble, and it's describing what Joseph Smith talked about. And they say that he spoke about a lot of cosmism and the polar configurations just through a religious aspect.
Well, maybe he didn't know, of course. I mean, they're carrying on tradition, but they don't know why.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Right.
I love that.
And this is what you're talking about right there.
That is exactly what I'm talking.
Right. And then it had like the versions of the moon and the other ones, the comet blowing around here, some other plasma discharges. Yep, and it's right up against that wall there.
Yeah, and you can
envision
see that
they're scattered all over this wall, and there's everybody standing over here. There's built petroglyphs over here. They're just all over the place.
Yeah, we didn't even realize we were walking. The first time, I had no idea that I was like halfway through them before I realized what I was walking on top of.
Yeah, you're just standing on them. You're like, oh my.
And your eyes are trying to adjust too. There's a good symbol of the 4 rivers or pathways in the Saturn, but yep, things coming off the top. Very interesting.
Waterman.
4 winds, the 4 rivers.
More of the rogue planets or whatever.
I like how you can see that they put a glow around it, like a comet or a planet with a glow, or that's what I envision.
Right.
Well, you can only envision that if you understand the electric universe theories of how
Flower of life.
There's a potential for adaptability.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The Egyptian centipede god.
Those darn Egyptians.
One that wiped out a lot of life and at
looks
one
like
point.
A couple comets there flying with tails on them up there.
Yep.
And there's the animals in the heavens. Wow. Electricity makes things.
Well, clearly that's a uterus, the massive flying uterus in the sky.
Right.
That's what that is. I don't know, but you could tell I mean.
Now here's a fake one.
Yeah.
John Hancock.
People, there are people that try to, match up there. You can tell the difference because these are freshly chipped, and these actually look like they've been bored out with like a rounded tip because they're just holes. They're just chipped in there. There's really no hard chip marks, or it just look like it was shot with a bunch of BBs almost, and as opposed to this is all scratched in and scraped.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they, well, that's one of the advantages. It's of when you see landscapes that are faked, because you can't fake an electrical discharge landscape. Craters look like craters look like craters. They don't look like craters if they're not made with electricity, because you won't get the proper distribution, large and small, and stuff like that. Or craters that land on the rims, bullseye craters, have to be there in the pattern. In the same sense, once you understand many of the Peratt instabilities, fake ones are obvious. You're like, that's fake, because that's fake.
That's not the polar configuration.
Those
it's got to be fake.
Lines, right. Here's those etching lines that we were talking about. If you see these, you start following them, you're going to find something really spectacular when it comes to a head.
Yeah, and they're right across the landscape. You can follow those everywhere. They're raised up too, like just.
Yep. They're not eroded in. They're raised up and they're hard. And they look like Lichtenberg patterns just running through the rock.
That looks like Venus's landscape, right?
So, what's your theory there, Robert? Is that electricity that's melting along those lines, the rock, or
well, this is right along the water.
A micro.
Yeah, so normally when you get a lot of lightning strikes here, you're going to start to get a vitrification effect that's going through here, and that's why it makes it a bit denser, kind of pulls it up, and then you'll get those Lichtenberg patterns. And then when it hits something like it really feeds on it, it just starts boring into it. That's where you'll get your strikes. And then usually we found in these strikes, Neil will tell you, especially like in the slot canyons, you might find a bored area where you have like a brown ooze of fluvial running out of it. And Bruce has actually found another one of those, and I think he has some footage of one. He showed me. So there's another actual incident where you have that brown goo coming out, and it's a different location.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Duff,
But it's a surface thing then, right? It's not. It's throughout the rock. This is a.
No, Duff, I pull your attention to some of the Thunderbolts project videos of them discharging through a granite block.
But this
the electricity is passing through the granite block, and it's creating those spires of sand that we see, like rock.
Oh, in Andy Hall's Thunderbolt.
Yeah. We see those spires of rock. This is electricity moving through solid rock.
Right, it does.
Not a problem. Yeah, and the action of a high voltage going through the solid rock would vitrify in lines like that.
Well, actually, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. In fact, you can see where this was originally laid down, and you can see where the subsonic stuff have etched some of the rock to make it look rounded and stuff like that. That's perfectly normal. But when you get to the actual thing, the current going through the rock, this is not unlike the dikes. Or if you look at shiprock, it's the same thing. It's the current is going through very strongly. And what are you tapping? Who's tapping?
That's me. I'm sorry.
Anyway, that's and you just go right through the rock itself, and it will, I guess, transform the rock, usually in crystal veins like quartz and stuff, and pulls that out. I think that's probably how you get gold and other material like that. They're found in veins because of that exact reason. In fact, we saw in the 2016 Geology Tour, which I don't know if anyone is actually on, but
Bruce is in there.
Well, I think Bruce was, and Andy was, but we saw a mine where there was one of these hits that went right through the landscape, and it was completely separate on a separate, like you can tell it was after the land was laid down. This is just almost vertical, and they're almost vertical, of course, because in my opinion they are indicative of the way that current travels in rock. I mean, when it gets close to the surface, it's pinched. So it's up and down, just like a lightning strike is up and down. Anyway, but I'll carry it along because it's going across the surface. Well,
it appears that those lines were traveling along the surface, and obviously appearances can be deceiving. So my specific question is, I understand that electricity can travel through stone, and that makes sense to me. But in that case, it looked like the electricity was traveling along the surface of the rock. And so I was wondering if we could make that distinction, and if it's possible that it was traveling on the surface as opposed to sort of inundating the rock itself.
Well, it would have to be wanting to travel along the surface, but it wouldn't be like that the whole time. It would metastasize or change rock underneath it. And if it was still growing, like if material was still pouring on, material would melt to it.
Those lines propagate right through down into the rock. It's not just
and not with the regular layered topography. If you notice, the regular layering is more of a like, for example, on this one, like a 30-degree angle, but that's much more of a closer to a 80-degree angle. Actual electricity.
Yeah, it passes through the layers and changes the layers into that material.
Whatever that material is. Like it's. Well, here's Matthew going to tell us all about it. Matthew was on it. Of course, he was on our tour.
Yep.
Should have said something. I was like, who else was on this tour? I know someone was.
So, these shots are in Dragon Canyon. So we're going to start there. This is all new territory for you. This is going along the San Rafael swell further north than Three Fingers. This takes you into Black Dragon.
Oh, look at those. That's some metal content there.
Yeah.
Some electrical patina there.
Oh no, I'm sorry. This is Nine Mile Canyon. I'm sorry. This has a lot of the petroglyphs.
Oh, yeah, that's...
These are the ones you don't normally see. And,
that's
if you
Jupiter,
Google
isn't it? That's the Jupiter on its throne? Well, I mean, it looks
Dusty
like...
Dusty was courteous enough to go climbing because this guy's he loves to go off on the hardened trail that no one usually takes. He found more petroglyphs that you don't normally see when you Google 9 Mile Canyon on for images. It's really hard to come up with some of these shots.
So how old can we imagine these might be?
Is that Saturn to the right?
No, that's a spot. That's a spiral. That doesn't necessarily that can happen. That can happen for anything that might be passing by us. It's not necessarily. However, notice how it's underneath.
Well, that's the labyrinth is a spiral, right?
Well,
Same
that
thing.
could be the labyrinth. But they would be much more scared of it than this, and they cover it up with something. Notice how there's something there, like the sheet top, and then there's something underneath of it. Well, if that's an older version on top, okay, like those ones are.
Yeah, it does look older.
This one, I think, would be Jupiter because we're dealing with the Midnight God and his throne out there in the distance, and sometimes he had the wings, and sometimes he was like those mesh gods from Sumeria, you know, with the bird heads and stuff. But that's basically Thor.
Right.
And he's still battling with probably Saturn going off into the distance. I mean, this is probably years and years after the polar configuration. Like, I mean, like 1,000.
Yeah.
That, however, is Venus.
Could that be them going through the asteroid belt, being lit up by that action?
I would love. Well, that's the thing. You weren't. I don't know if you were here for Julian West's work, and I'm still trying for everyone to put his together. Just a lot of good stuff there, and he did such a great piece of work that. Well, basically, he wanted to make sure that he gave me all the perfect copies. So it's going to take me a bit of time to, put that together. But I'll have it out as soon as humanly possible. I'm going through a little bit of physiotherapy right now. Anyway.
Oh, I was going to quote Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you hit me with the therapy thing. So do it now.
Do it now. I have a tumor, my chopper. Okay. So.
The tumor.
Go on, Robert. Obviously, we're sitting here looking at these wonderful.
So we're just looking some more shots of 9 Mile Canyon. So looking for more petroglyphs and more of the terrain.
I bet you Andy said that those are shockwave marks up top.
Yep. But he was Lawrence, and you can almost see the harmonic.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
there's a lot of
pretty hard.
See the yeah.
That's the debris falling down that they couldn't lift up, pretty much. And this is some great excavation. Look at it. That's just wonderful. And that's shocked. Like that's like
right.
That's been Star Trek special effect right there.
This has been etched out.
Yeah, it was hit by phasers for sure.
You can sit there and hide.
I would if well look at the blast heat on that one side to the left there. Like you don't see the melting. Just absolutely fantastic.
And the little teeny tiny cratering in the blast heat area. That's cool.
Look at that, just blasted to a little piece, like an
asteroid coming through the atmosphere. Ooh.
Well, we gotta be fair that a lot of this is probably actually broken apart because of ice. I mean,
you can see like it almost got turned to glass and then peeled right off, and then it started doing it again.
Well, I think it had a layer put across it, but it started trying. The electricity will try to grab at any edges it can and remove it.
Well, working with concrete and high heat, it pops off after a while. It'll glass over and then pop off.
Yeah, you're not wrong there too. Yeah. You can see a little bit of that at the top too. Oh, that's.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Aubergine.
That's why you see a lot of these darkened areas that look like, or like in the middle here, it's really light colored where it's popped off. Late at the very last, at the end of the electrical interaction, and it didn't get a chance to get a glaze on it again.
But that's surface.
You see that on a lot of large surfaces in these areas too, from photos that I've seen.
That happens to be everywhere, and as someone who doesn't live near that stuff, it's very unique. Like we don't have a big patina thing going on here. I mean, if we have patina growing, it's likely because of lichen, bacteria. That looks like fool's gold. That stuff.
Well, they will tell you that it's the chemicals in the air from the 20th century manufacturing, most of the new stuff.
I call that fuddle duddle, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a better
Mr.
word
Speaker.
for that, but I don't want to say that.
I just went with our great Prime Minister Trudeau there, and not the Durrett one, the former one, who told a guy to F right off in the middle of Parliament, and the guy was like, "What was that?" The Speaker was like, "What was that, Mr. Prime Minister?" He said, "That was fuddle duddle, sir."
This is called the Great Hunt. This is still in 9 Mile Canyon.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, dude, the blackening.
Yep.
Now, were they trying to depict, was this an order? Because it looks like an order, like it was progressing or something.
Well, I think they call it the Great Hunt because you see the archers over here.
Oh,
but I've
clearly.
never seen a hunt. I've never seen a hunt where the whole entire herd is standing off with the hunters. You know, they usually are running the other direction. You know,
Well, the horns alone.
Run away.
The horns alone is sort of a, especially with the spiraling tail coming off of one of them connecting to the foot of the other guy. It's sort of like he's trying to depict, it was like this, it was like this, it was like this, it got like that, and then went like this, and went like this, and went like this again. That's what I'm getting, you know. I could be wrong. Like he's trying to depict time. Like this is one of those interesting things in my world. Like, are we looking at a snapshot of someone closing their eyes and seeing, or are we looking at someone trying to depict from left to right or right to left?
What's with the naked Bowman?
Right.
He was in 2001: A Space Odyssey. No, that was David Bowman.
Not Dave Bowman. I said the naked Bowman.
I know.
Yeah, it could be a loincloth.
He's got a deer skin hanging over him, see, so that's his tail. No, that's called
the Bowman, a variation of the Pied Piper, the Piper.
Oh yeah.
Petroglyph.
Fremont style. Have you heard of Fremont style?
No, I haven't.
That's what they call these. The ones in 9 Mile. Many of them are called the Fremont. Forgot the age of that. I was trying to look that up for y'all. But they're.
I think it looks like a family portrait, like the stickers you put on the back of your SUV.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You've just. You know what you've done? You've kind of broke my brain because suddenly I just realized if we stylize that in black and white and put it on the back of vehicles, and we could just call it the electric view.
I got a million of them.
We don't care about your.
I'm an effect. That's all I am.
We could have it like, and we could have them like
causing.
Yeah, we could have them causing devastation to another stick figure family. And goes, our gods do not care about your stick. Anyway, please go on. And Matthew, what was that you were talking about with the? You had mentioned something with regards to that particular picture. I didn't want to. I know I cut you off with Bruce, but I didn't want to cut you off completely.
Well, he's got the. It's mentioned here the Fremont period. So they were Fremont rock style. That's what they're called. From the Great Hunt.
950 to 1200 AD. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, because that's what they've seen. Yes, of course, because that's what's exactly going on. During the Battle of Hastings, we saw a lot of gods in the sky. That's another thing I like, because you can really go, nope, you're wrong. Why? Because it's not at that date. Why? Because it isn't. Because look at this.
What does the geology say that the rock formations are? The age, that is.
They would likely go into billions for geology one, but
they're sandstones. What age? They're Mesozoic, right?
I believe so.
You're the man that knows. You're like literally the only geologist here. The rest of us are full of crap.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just talking about our electrical interpretation. You go, it's Mesozoic era. Like, you totally know.
Well, the rocks in that whole area, like San Rafael, that's I think what's the Jurassic's on the bottom and it's poking out in the middle. Then there's Cretaceous and Triassic. Triassic and Cretaceous, I mean. So this Mesozoic lake bed sediments out there, a lot of it, those are sandstones. I think they're probably Cretaceous, huh? Forget which one that is.
That one looks like a flying spaghetti monster. But on the other side, though, the flying spaghetti monster being in the middle, the symbols in the north and the one to the left there at the top are just ideal. That's clearly the eye on top of a body, which we've seen before in other petroglyphs, and that would happen to be the cross. Notice there's a cross in the middle, and then you got four basically bright plasmoids around a sort of almost heart-shaped object that would be or could be Saturn. And again, right off to the side, you, to the right, you're starting to see those guys again, the antelope.
Yep.
Ibex.
More.
It just often blows my mind because, I mean, why would you be painting these antelope? Deer don't look like that around here at all. Like, I mean, maybe they did back then, but they certainly don't now.
They more closely resemble ibex.
Yeah.
Extinct ibex.
But there's none around here, are there? Were there ibex around here? Did we kill them
There were
off?
ibex in Europe and North America, apparently.
Shut the front door. Well, I'm glad that you actually got a chance to go out there again. So,
Yeah.
What other do you have any videos of what happened? Oh, go ahead.
Neil, take some comments.
Yeah, go. I'm gonna try to dig up some videos here.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much.
We had a drone that flew the what was that, Cottonwood
That was
Canyon?
9 Mile. We had a drone in 9 Mile. I didn't get anything from that guy yet. He's kind of like stuck in work. I'm still waiting on the footage from him so we can actually compile something and get another release out here for it.
I did actually I did actually put out this gentleman, one of our viewers actually was inspired and was going to Shiprock, and he got us a really good shot of it, of Shiprock.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah, I think it's in the related content off the page. I want to grab it because you're in control right now, but only if you can't find something.
I'm going to stop sharing here because I'm
All
going
right,
to try to dig
I'll take
up.
care of it. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. That way I'll hold everything up.
No. Put everyone like this. I'll go down here to the thing. They got this. It was just this. It's so amazing the way that he put together. I mean, the clarity. I mean, it must be like, it feels like 4K.
Yeah.
Take a look at this. He's flying right over this dike here. You guys will have to watch it on the thing because I'm not sharing this. But because I'm sorry, I was more concerned about them. But you can see the full layout of it, just crisscrossing the landscape. You can see the almost right angle connections of the positive strikes. This is what I mean by electricity running across the landscape. Anything that would fall across it, if there was stuff falling, would just weld to it. This is how these dikes get up. That's my opinion. Andy and I differ on that. I'm sure Bruce would debate us too. Generally speaking, and he was just traveling into Shiprock. Nice blue Jeep. We need to get a bunch of those for our.
Okay, seeing this video helps me understand that previous still photograph.
Yes.
Right? I like that too. I like that footage.
You can see him. Look at this. Look how beautiful it is. Of course, again, you've a little bit delayed shots here. Just couldn't get any better. And you can see the devastation of the landscape and how this is completely different than a regular excavation. Look at the burning marks. Much more of a deposition. And these dikes become barriers. I mean, some parts get knocked off to the side. but because there must be wind, supersonic winds blowing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, but are those plateaus ancient thunderbolt strikes that are more positively charged and don't get etched away?
I'd have to actually look at them. This strike here is positive. The shiprocks.
I think that's what Andy Hall says, is these plateaus that are out there, you can see them out on the landscape. These high points are massive electrical arcs that touch the ground and change the polarity of the earth in that small area, and the rest of it got etched away.
Well, some of it you can see, like that one, you saw the flat layers in it. It's coming up on your video. The flat layers in those shots indicate that something was there and then etched away. But you see how things are growing out of it. That's deposition. And so clearly we were having, this whole area has been tortured with positive and negative strikes right beside each other. You can see,
yeah, well, there would be in Andy Hall's mentioning of how the whole entire southwest looks like the great spot of Jupiter, and supersonic winds, updrafts and downdrafts could, be depositing and etching at the same time and right in the same general area. Yeah, I could see that.
Some places were totally understand, because they all have these perfect V-shaped trench sides to it, down and then on a 45, then down on a 45. See, some of this look like the bottom, but none of them look perfect. They all look mangled.
Yeah, and we also see this on scale too, on small scale, a larger scale, and larger scales, mountains to down into the rocks, into the little thunderbolt strike that Robert just showed us.
Yeah, down into the microstructures. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question here. Could we be seeing, this is kind of what goes back to what I was thinking before, and in the flyby there, you saw layering happening. Is it possible that we can be mistaking electrical vitrification and electrical machining for layers in the Earth's crust? Is it possible that we could have that mistaken on occasion? Do you think that geologists might see this layers of vitrification as layers of sediment, or as read them through time as opposed to a single event?
Well,
it seems to me that's possible.
That is literally the debate that me and Bruce would sit there and argue about. He's really good at going, but here, let's look at this, the water going through here, and I'm like,
no, dude, I'm just happy that I get it. Like, I'm just thrilled to be on the same page.
So. Okay.
Well, we just have to look at a brand new planet, Venus, and we see that it's layered.
We're making the assumption, but we have pretty good evidence that yes, it is fairly new.
Yeah, and you can look at Mars, which has been electrically devastated and ripped apart almost.
And that's because no one liked Mars.
It's layered as well. So layering is a creation event, and then you get layering from other electrical events that interact with bodies that are out in the cosmos, that are interacting with each other. So you get multiple layerings, which look like a man. I mean, I'm quoting Saturday Night Live here, but it look like a man, and it looks like uniformitarianism over millions and billions of years of erosion and compaction and erosion. Electricity does the exact same thing instantly, like we talked about crater creation,
or near instantly.
Yeah, very quick.
We do know that each magnitude, of course, would increase the time the same way as it increases distance. So that's one of the wonderful things that allows us to recognize what we're looking at in space sometimes with the electric view of the world.
Right, like a lightning bolt that comes from a cloud down to the ground lasts what, a nanosecond or a fraction of a second.
Well, actually, it probably happens like 16 times in a second or less. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one that comes from a planet would probably be sustained for what, a couple days, a day?
No, probably shorter.
Okay.
Well,
2
no,
hours,
we
3
saw
hours.
we saw them travel from planet to planet sometimes as the sun.
Yeah, as the sprites being thrown between planets and well, sprites. I'm talking about plasmoids, right?
Yes. Well, it would be in this case. These things would be little white things traveling from point to point. Someone's beeping in here and saying something. Hearing
Well,
beeping, beeping.
they could be red like
Oh,
we
they're
see the sprites.
Robert's posting things. Sure.
Yeah, I found all those posts and I'm throwing them up.
I was like, what is beeping?
They could be red like the red sprites that we see in the upper atmosphere, and they could be, you know, white as well. We don't. Are there any ancient descriptions of what color the thunderbolts of the gods were?
Yeah, actually, Zeus would sperm all over things, so they were white.
Oh, okay. White.
I know that sounds
That's
really.
hot.
I mean, no, it's just that's, you know, they were little white things that would travel some to India.
the
They were
language that they
missions.
used?
Well, that was the Greeks, but in the Hindu, of course, he was firing missiles. They called them literally missiles, but that's probably a translation thing. They probably have a different term. Like we wouldn't say arrows, you know, missiles. But
Right, and that's why Oppenheimer thought that they had exploded nuclear weapons in the past,
yes.
which these thunderbolts of the gods were, you know, like orders of magnitude more than, well, maybe one order of magnitude more than all of our nuclear weapons combined. One of these massive strikes.
Oh my God, yes. And the interpretation, of course, is, I mean, not really even fair. Some of the, I mean, even I began to realize, like, well, not even I shouldn't say it like that, but someone recently pointed out to me, like, the amount of devastation we're getting is not just going to be the strikes themselves, not just the aftermath and the devastation and all that stuff of trying to find food and all the death and the dead bodies and the bacteria and the disease, but there's also the fact that they will irradiate you. A large enough strike will just, I mean, boom, welcome to, like, you know, 100 rads.
And even a comet breaking up and hitting the Earth in the Younger Dryas to initiate the Younger Dryas doesn't have enough energy to melt all that ice that was on that two, you know, like to melt 1 kilometer or 1 mile of ice.
A lot of people don't have a concept of exactly
They
how
don't
hard it
have
is
that.
to melt ice. Like water is a really good absorber of energy. Yeah.
Those comet strikes would not have been able to melt all that water in one instant and put it into the seas like it was done. The mainstream say that, you know, it took 1,000 years for that water to melt. No, it was instant almost because of the energies involved in these thunderbolt strikes.
So, what is the relationship between an impact event and electric universe theory? How do those two concepts interplay as per the electric universe perspective?
Well, I guess the easiest thing to say is that an impact would require the materials to be electrically neutral to each other. That would be the first thing. Like, we're very well balanced to the moon.
Okay.
It's possible that the moon may be able to get close to us, but I would still think that the two negative surfaces pushing against each other and the two positive cores pushing against each other would prevent us from touching.
I think it would take a large body to discharge to the moon in order for it to change its charge so that it would either move closer to the Earth or further away from the Earth and sit within our magnetic field.
It's not exactly like that. Basically, the sun itself would be our dependent. So the closer you are to the sun, the more charged you are because you're in a higher electrical environment, amps per cubic or square meter going by you. If you're way out past Pluto, you're balanced for closer to the heliopause. When you come close to the sun, you're completely off with charge. The asteroid belt coming close to the Earth, that's a bit different. A comet coming close to the Earth, now that's Tunguska. You know, a part of a comet, that's quite a charged body, and that's where you get things like 20 or 30 megaton explosions. You know, but those are still very small bodies. The charge is doing the damage. If the charge
you're talking
of
about
another
something
body
that's about
like
the
a
size
planet,
of a house or a bus.
yeah, I mean, if another planet came near us, the charge differential, I mean, to prevent us from hitting each other, wouldn't be so. It'd be like bringing two Van de Graaff generators close by. They would want not to touch each other, but they'd certainly shoot lightning bolts to each other and blast the surface off of each other. Yeah, that's.
Still haven't seen Robert's paper very much. Robert, that's your cue.
He actually did show a lot of the paper. We're totally fine.
Well, the only thing I haven't shown yet is the new data that I had to get enhanced because the X-ray diffraction chart, which is in the report, I took through 2017, but the supporting data on the charts that was like the actual figures was so faded that nobody could really understand what the chart meant. So this is the chart here, but I had the supporting data behind it. So here you go.
I'll bring that up right now.
This would be actually good. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing the screen.
No, go ahead, share the screen and grab it. I was just showing some footage of what we were doing. Yeah,
okay.
Obviously.
And I just uploaded a bunch of photos and videos from my phone from the Black Dragon Canyon and a few other things. We can get to that in a few moments whenever it uploads. But yeah, here in the report is the chart that is the X-ray diffraction test. And then I guess normally what we can do is if you look at the high peaks, they match those and those signatures, and they match the minerals that are the composite of the whatever it's made of, all the elements. So an alcium is a sodium aluminum silicate with water in it, hydrate, and I don't know the exact number. I have to pull that up, but basically that's how they found out what this was. And here's the numbers that show for this particular chart. Here, if anybody actually understands, X-ray diffraction and spectrolysis, kind of like Monty Childs and what they do over at Sapphire to read those light charts. This is what they would basically get for this particular sample.
I know, it's a lot of fun, isn't it?
It is. And then I actually had a scratch tablet from Mike Zielinski at NASA where he actually did on a scratch table with like an alcime and calcite, and he's like matching the peaks up and everything. So it's just a scratch note to kind of like his work and verifies it. But I didn't put that in the report. It's just the data that's the only extra stuff that I've put in. So that's basically the gist of the report. I put it in the links there. I'll supply you with the references. Actually, I'll just go to that page here so we can go.
Oh yeah, I'll put this right into the description of the video for everyone to click on after we're done here. So no problem.
Right. This is a letter from Mike Zielinski saying that he conducted X-ray diffraction on those samples there that were provided, showing what it's made of, some research. I
like how thorough this kind of stuff is. I'll be like, well, according to my textbook.
Right.
That's what I want to say. Because that's how capacitors work. But what do you mean? What do you mean, what do I mean?
So, yep, there's a list there. We'll go through those, and I'll send those a link to you for all the references. But, just so that we're not on anything from people, I'll just show it. That's my work, and up to this point, and hopefully we'll get, hopefully some of these things have loaded up from the pictures.
Yeah, they're just in your description there, corner there.
Yeah, where's this?
Right there, yeah.
Where we go.
Put them.
So here's that table, that extra fused wall that I was talking about. You there?
Rick just had to go. That's all.
Oh,
later, dude. All right, yeah, go ahead there. This is the wall you were talking about?
Yes, this is the new wall that we've discovered in Blackwell. There's actually two of these. It's the same wall, but it's kind of like broken. Mm-hmm. But you can see here, this is like that concrete stuff that I was talking about. Minor pebbles just concreted together, and it's sitting right on top of the slick rock area. But in between this line here, you can actually see where it was actually trying to leach sandstone out. And it's like, it's really thin and flaked, and it's like spider webbed almost. So it looks like it's being leached into it. There's almost a little bit of it here you can see, but it's really fine.
That would actually make sense, because if the two materials, like that's a border zone between some materials that were like, perhaps hot, and then suddenly this material, these balls are falling all over and welding to it. And you can see how they try to etch underneath. I can see in this picture.
Yeah, it was etching right underneath. This is wrapped, and this is about another 40 yards. Kind of goes, it wraps around this corner, and then it breaks off, and then there's another deposit of it further on down the road.
What's up above here, if I might be so bold?
This
Just
is
a
just
big pile of death coming down here.
It's a big pile of death. There's actually some petroglyphs further down this on where my cursor is. There's further on down to the right here. There's just a few petroglyphs, but this is right in the middle of Black Dragon. So this is about a 400 to 500 just sheer slick rock cliff. I mean, just straight up. And this is the only like kind of tiered edges on this side of the wall. And then Dusty and I climbed the other side where there was a spire at the top. But it's
making my heart beat just looking at it, because I know just standing underneath those things and looking up and realizing there's literally a million tons of stuff on top of this.
Yeah. And then over in here is where the petroglyphs are, because it's all fenced off. But you can actually walk up to them. They don't want you touching them, though.
Of course, but I can see that I see that there's some potential shelters in this area too. I can see a bad spot to hang out. You'd also chase.
Then there's some parts where you can actually see where the arching is actually occurring inside the walls again, in the same kind of pattern that Bruce is talking about. Like whenever arches do form, it just kind of like almost a barrier strike just starts drilling out and just leaves like an arch pattern. But there's a stronger version of one here. So we'll try to pull it up.
Those walls are too. Reminds me of the box canyons in New Mexico.
That's about 300 to 400 feet, I think, if I'm correct. At least it seems that way. It's huge.
I wonder if they put petroglyphs up higher that we just couldn't find yet.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Well, wouldn't be surprised at all. I see you were out and found some bush.
Yep, found some bush. I just had to put that in there. Here's that cross etching with the strikes in it.
Yes.
That white kind of licking bird pattern. You see that?
Look at that. It almost looks like it's folded in some places. It's just
right. And then hopefully some of these. I got some videos still loading from my phone, so it's going to take a minute here.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah, because they're not showing on this version, but on my phone they're still uploading. So we'll just wait a little bit. If you guys want to go touch up on other things, hopefully we'll get those up here.
Oh yeah, I'll just I'll throw that back.
I'll stop there.
You talking? I mean, a lot of people are asking like to go on something like that. Even if you like, here they all come. Here they'll be popping in here. Oh, Mike has to go. That's the moment. Oh, okay, he doesn't have to go. Matthew.
Well, that is the plan: is to get a bunch of people together every year to have these events and share the word and then help spread it. Have some fun in the process.
That's what it's all about, really.
Right.
Oh yeah, there's a big centipede god there. Sorry, I'm just looking at all these wonderful pictures.
Right on.
I hope I'm still sharing if I'm.
I'm seeing it on the TV screen, but it may look like the videos are loaded up now.
They are. I'm going to click on one. Let's see what happens.
Precipitating out.
Yeah, it's like a little ball of silica gets together, and there's charge density right there, and then that draws to it
more stuff.
Right,
and then pretty soon it drops.
And then it gets heavy.
Yeah, that's Andy talking about the at the Moki Marble Mountain. We were all reflecting. This is back at camp.
I see.
Right.
Because there's a sorting that goes on when.
Yeah, they're actually. You can actually hear it on the broadcasting to the world, but I don't know if you guys can hear it.
Some of them.
No, I can't. That's okay though. As long as they can. It's also posted on the Geology site, so they can upload this.
Oh, I like
that. That's
we need a paper on that at the
Electric Universe Geology on Facebook.
Right.
Cool.
And then the video right below that in the links is actually the Moki Marble site.
When that plasma condenses, it goes through.
That's at the campfire. As we were about the night before everybody got here, we were about to go off on our journey the next day. We're all just relaxing and had a barbecue.
I'm just leaned right in and watching this. Oh, these are the Moki marbles here.
Right. This is a field of Moki marbles.
You're describing them to me, and you're breathing like I breathed in my video.
A little bit of deer shit, but primarily Moki marbles.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Deer shit.
And they just wash up every time.
Deer shit.
There's some that are fused into the rocks.
Moki
There's some
marbles.
that are just laying there and they turn up every time it washes away. There's some that are peanut shaped. They got twin lobes.
Just like Comet 67P.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I love the electrical conformations, especially when there's like, where do these fall from? Shouldn't they be in piles? You know, like if nothing else.
Yep, and then there's several pictures. That one actually looks more like a fulgurite that was burned into the sandstone.
Yeah.
And I had to break that one out because this is on private property. The guy actually allows you to just come up and have some fun. But normally, like if you go down to Grand Escalante staircase where they have Moki marbles, that's completely sovereign. You can't touch anything. I mean, you can point at it. You can't really pick it up and walk away with it. It's all protected.
Fair enough. I can understand that. But yeah, I suppose finding something like that. It does look like a strike, like just turned into like metal or something.
Right.
Oh, there's another. Look at that. That's a perfect, perfect strike. And you can even see the way it affected all the way around, so you can see the layers of it. That's just
right. It was a pretty fun trip. Learned a lot, discovered some new things, and definitely want to share it with the people. So that's why we want to set up a geology tour every year.
Well, it looks like it's about the time that we start doing that, or at least, I mean, I feel kind of bad that I couldn't. I wouldn't be any good to you anyway. I wouldn't be able to.
Oh, yeah. Well, get healed up, Neil, because we need you out there.
I want to definitely be out there. Look at this. This is just amazing. What you guys have discovered. Just every time, there's always something new.
Yep.
And we were in Michael Steinbacher's memorial tour, we actually got a chance to. Larry White was with him when he passed away. There, that's who Larry was. We got permission to spread his ashes in Grand Canyon. So,
oh wow!
Not everyone gets to do that.
No.
Pretty high honor on that one. We weren't allowed to throw it into the canyon. We were allowed to spread it along the edge, however.
Right.
Not enough that it would, affect history for years to come. We have found the remains of no. Great. We've totally ruined the Grand Canyon. Now they think it's made in 2020. Do we have any questions from the anything Duffster? Because it's been about 2 hours, so we're sort of just winding down.
I just posted the Michael Steinbacher's camera and Larry's discussion of the camera, so if anybody wants to see that, it'll be up on the link. It should load here shortly, but in the meantime,
I'll just wait and I'll click on it and bring it in. I'm gonna have to find some of these. Are these are all in the this is on the geology page too, eh?
Yes, I did put up these originally because while we were out on the tour, I trying to put it up a few things as I could when we could get some Wi-Fi again. I threw up some random posts here and there, so this should be there. Larry's comment on Michael's camera, and then a few pictures of it. This is from the older tour.
Oh yeah, no, I put that up there because we were it's all good.
Hey guys, I have a question. And it's gonna go back to like Jacob Gable's experiments. Can we factor in compaction into the experiments? And just from a general point of view, I notice whenever the experiments are being run, especially Jacob's experiments, it doesn't look like the sand, if you will, that's in the jars is compacted to 100%. You know, we can't build you can't build houses and buildings unless you have 100% compaction. I know there isn't 100% compaction all the time throughout the whole world in every single spot, but do you think there's a way we can factor the compaction into the electrical experiments, which would
Yes.
probably even you'd have to adjust the charges you're using, but just a general question.
I think one of the things that we could do is use different types of sediments. Like we have to go ultra fine, in my opinion, to not just sand, but I mean like to like spore level sizes, like or clay dust level sizes, you know,
and also layering
and layer it and shake it.
Right.
That's
like,
the only thing
you
that
know,
hasn't really been done, like even with Billy Elverton's stuff. Like if you really
it's
do the
very important,
compacting, but if you
layering,
put
yeah.
layering and seeing like what types of
Right.
moisture
However,
levels.
to Jacob Gable's credit, he did put water underneath, and that
Right.
has
Yes, he did.
and same with David
Put
Brown.
ice in it as well.
Yeah, because what we realized, and I didn't even think about this, is what happens when an aquifer vaporizes. Like we don't. That's where the current's going to be carried, right along the edge, not through the water, but the edge of the water, as we know from watching Buddy do his woodwork, that you can see that the edges is where the fun happens, where it's damp, the barriers between things. Well, this, in my opinion, would be very interesting if you could actually watch the pressure that would build inside a vaporizing, steam vaporizing, aquifer under the ground would be absolutely devastating. It would just blast, like everything would just lift up and turn as if it was made of the, when ice heaves and it does that thing where all the ice turns upside down, like on in Antarctica and stuff, where like an entire Manhattan Island size of stuff would just churn. Well, that's what would happen, except it would be because underneath the ground, I mean, it's vaporizing the rock. The rock cannot deal with that pressure. It's going to pop off and start flipping over, and parts are going to get ripped off and lifted to the sky. And we have to, I've never considered that before, but when I look at it and look at what some of these landscapes might actually mean, and how did it get that way? How the dinosaurs were not walking vertically up this whole cliffside, the footprints which should have been leveled. What force, not just electrically pulling it up, but was there something else? Like, did the aquifer underneath that area break and then the whole thing popped up and then steam? I mean, much more violent than just that kind of pressure, but you can envision what I'm talking about.
It's just even like if you're in, depending on what region of the world you're in, let's say New York City, in Staten Island, and you're along the Arthur Kill River, because I've done excavations there. You hit the water table really quick. So he should have had water at the bottom when he did his experiments. Now, as you move to different elevations, as you dig with an excavator, you're not going to necessarily hit the water table as fast. You hit it because we know, even in Western Pennsylvania, where I'm from, people have wells in their backyards, and some people don't even draw water from cities and municipalities. So, yeah, you should have had water in the experiments. But I guess depending on where you are, how deep you have to dig before you hit the water table, is relevant to where you are, but there should have been water there. I would agree with that. It's just a compaction thing that just something that just popped into my head like a couple days
you're
ago.
totally right. In fact, if we are really, really being kind, we should probably sort of do what's the word? Simulated welding, if we could, like where material is, I want to say, cooked or baked to a surface or electrostatically stuck to a surface. With just a little bit of energy, you could change the way that they're bonded, like between loose and glue, and see what these layers do when you start electrifying them. And the trouble is, I think a lot of times is making different landscapes and seeing if your predictions are correct, like by trying it over and over again and see if you could actually predict that. Once you start doing that, you're onto something, especially if you could say it's going to do this because I see it in nature, and then you're comparing the two. That's a much closer to a scientific type of work.
Right. Yeah, this is a general question.
Good question, though.
Yeah.
Get that footage up for Michael's camera and Larry's interview.
Oh, is it up? Okay, perfect. I'll pause this.
Yep.
We're just looking at some dinosaur bones there.
Right.
I love that place. Oh, I see it. Okay.
And there's also some footage from the pinnacles.
This is Larry White.
Some shots there.
Presenting Michael Steinbacher's cameras that he inherited.
Yeah, they're two Canon 5D Mark IIs. They were from 2006. He got them. But he had two of them. And he put this 24-105 millimeter on this one. And just left that on there. And then this 70-.
I've got a question about the upheaval dome. We can go back to that.
Yeah, as soon as this is done playing.
It's kind of what you want.
Just wondering about the material in the centre of it, obviously sort of whitish colour. You've got Wolf Creek crater in Australia as well. That has white material in the middle. And even in the Meteor crater, or Barringer crater, doesn't that have white material right in the centre as well that they mined?
I'm not familiar with any white material in the center that they found in Barringer crater, because it's kind of I know they tried to mine the meteorite out and failed.
Was that where the white material comes from then that you see in that?
I think that's from that white material at the bottom of Upheaval Dome is more of like that same clay that you see out like around the Morrison Formation. However, there is the spire that's inside that clay formation, and it's like a brown scorched like a minette that and Andy Hall almost talks about, and that's really like brittle. It's really eroded, and let me see if I can pull up a picture of it. I had a picture of the actual spire inside the gray ring that you're talking about.
Yeah. And are there any local myths about the upheaval dome?
I'm positive that the whole area must have myths about it. Unfortunately, I don't know them all.
Neither do I.
Too bad Ramon's not here. He could tell us all about it.
I mean, the Wolf Creek crater in Australia, that has the plasma filament going through, and that's what formed it, not the snake. I mean, they witnessed it, so that's...
Find it yet?
I've got a small question.
Sure.
The doing the landscape things, it comes to my mind that since water is so can make a big difference. There's all kinds of different kinds of water, and the electrical charge would change the nature of the water itself again. So the variables are pretty big.
Correct. If it
I just
wasn't
want
for
everybody
this,
to think about that.
If it wasn't for the fact that there are direct similarities that we're seeing, this would almost seem like fantasy. I'm 100% with you. If it wasn't for some of these, you have to, every time we look deeper, we find another aspect. And what is small to something of a large magnitude is also another interesting situation, because it's like, well, this is a small part of a large hit, but the same effect could be the large part of a small hit. It depends on your point of view almost, because you're looking at it with as human beings running across the surface of the earth, it would be like running across the terrain of some of Jacob Gable's experiments, and it would just be so monumentally huge. Trying to understand what we're standing in here.
How would the salty sea affect it, especially at the junction of land and sea? Affect any of these sort of discharges?
Oh yeah, in fact, that's where we see a lot of the hits. Not only does the sea itself happen to represent the lowest point, it tends to be very flat. As soon as you get to the coast, it'll jump to the coast. That's where it will want to jump to first. I think a lot of these strikes that we see, which were just lines across the ocean bottom. If you know what I mean, like just we see them as just little pits across the ocean floor. I mean, that's 5 miles of water it was still managed to pit through. But as soon as it starts getting close to land, it jumps to the land like 100 miles. So then we start seeing the whole bays ripped out and all that kind of etching done. Obviously, inland, Upheaval Dome is the whole landscape etched down. But then you have this material that has changed in the middle of it. Just find that to be fascinating because it represents almost in situ metamorphosis of rock without a volcano.
You can even see that brown minette inside the gray ring at that point of view there.
Yeah, this is just us in 2017, just going through the
right.
There's Bruce.
Yeah, I'm just going through my pictures of that same shot. I was just pulling up a few here.
Oh, there you go.
About the layers in sort of circular form, like the.
You mind if I share real quick? I got a still frame.
Oh, of course, man. You just go ahead. I'll pause right there, and we'll let Matthew ask a question after.
I was just wondering. Sometimes with the plasma filament, you have the layers in. You know, they're different. Is this? Are you sure? Is this coming down? Is this just one sort of filament coming down with the different layers around it, creating different chemicals?
Well, a lot of us think it's. I mean, in many cases, it might actually be nuclear. In the fact that the material is changing elements themselves.
Transmutation, yeah.
Yeah. However, you're right. It could. I mean, a chemical reactions, but it's possible. I mean, I'm positive there are chemical reactions going on, especially around the edges. I'll let Robert have the picture.
Yeah, so here it's just standing at the rim of Upheaval Dome. This is the placard you're mentioning here. This would be the northwest side that's blasting out and going out towards the Green River somewhere out here. So as you can see, this is that gray kind of like wet clay, Morrison Formation kind of clay that you have. And then in the center here, you can start seeing where it's browned out. And then there's also a few spires here in some of these shots. This is just from the basic video footage that Neil has, but some of my pictures as well. You can see in here some of those spires that I'm talking about. But this is really brittle, like a brown, like minette. And if I had better resolution and a blow-up shot, it's like really eroded. You can almost, like, there's holes that you can see through it almost, so it's like really pocked. There's some more here I might have. Oh, going over to 3 fingers now, so I'm out of those. So I'm sure if the video continued with Neil, you might be able to catch some.
Looking like Indiana Jones.
Trying to.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were. Except we weren't like as brave as him. We were. I mean, that man trap is still the scariest thing. It's like I can't believe.
Oh yeah, I had to warn those guys because they when we were at three fingers, it was Sunday. I had to get back going for to be back in school, so I left and they stayed out overnight there. And I warned them of that just in case if they decided to go check out the chevrons, so so they could return. If anybody fell in that thing, they're gone. There's no way.
Yeah, I think I got the footage. Yeah, right there. Yeah, we're walking over and. Yeah, this is it. This is it right here. Like, look at this. You're right beside me, and we're yelling down to these guys down there in the truck. Found this hole in the ground here, and we're trying to climb these chevrons, right, that are up on the side there, but this is just dirt. Like, it's not rock. It's just a big freaking hole. Like, I don't know what went down that, but I bet you there's 3 dead cows down there or something.
Something. Wouldn't be surprised if you found Jimmy Hoffa down there if you just sent a probe.
I think some of the water rushes off the swell when it does rain and goes right underneath this thing, and we're a tunnel under it.
Possibly.
That's what I trying to climb up here. Look how suntanned I am. I'm almost not Canadian. Have my gray ass beard dragging my.
Good times.
Oh. Well, guys, before we take off, any questions for?
I'd just like to go back to that man cave. Are there any more of those in that area? And are they in solid rock? Or, I mean, you said it's dirt there, but are they in solid rock with no cracks or fractures in them?
I saw just that one that was up in the side, like the one that Robert was showing earlier. I think I have it coming up here. This was hilarious watching them try to feed each other too.
Did it look like you could put a lid on that that hole?
Yes, but you couldn't go in it. I mean, I don't know what was down there, and it was straight down like at least 20 feet.
And it's just like loose clay down there, and who knows how.
No, I
wouldn't want to try that.
I would need a rope to get out of that.
Right.
But this is us looking for. We're following one of those electric lines in the rock that we found. It leads to this thing that we found up here.
Yeah, that leads to what Andy said. That was like the effluvia. It almost looks like syrup coming out of the rock, but it's completely solidified.
It looks flat here, but trust me, we're going up on like a 45-degree angle.
Yep.
That's why the camera's lurching. But look at the etching in the rock. I mean, look at that. The cliff face. And we get to the end, and then it just looks like this stuff. We assumed that some of it was had pigeon shit there, or whatever. But that rock is rock. But yeah, there's another. There's this one, and then the other one was when we were found it in a. This right here is the rock that's in the Brooklyn Current rock. I thought this was, as you can see, it's an actual tube inside the rock. So if this is actually indicative of what some of those arches are made of, as you can see that they are literally tubed rocks. That's coming out of a stone there. So this would mean that this was going through the rock inside of it, and then turned this material into what it is, and it was removed by electrical etching across the swell, and this stuff did not get etched away very easily. You can see it even has a twist to it. Compelling. Yeah, I'm looking for that wonderful thing that we found. I think this is you saw this pictures with Robert. The same waterbed in before. I think there's water here. And right behind it to the left, as soon as we start up that way, we're going to see the actual hole in the rock that you actually go right up inside of it. So yeah, and it's in solid rock. See if I can. Here I am, obsessed with just the ground. Look at the ground, man. Freaking ground. There it is up there.
If you were to turn around and actually film what was behind you, they would find there was a trail of those white little lightning arcs that just went right into a little baseball-sized hole, like a little slot canyon. But it was a very miniature version of what we had to climb. It would have been so much easier to show.
Probably. Well, it's amazing how much you miss.
But it was fun.
When you think, like here, this is when I realized I was sitting on Petroglyphs. There's the hole right there.
Yep.
We have a question from Marta Lyle.
Okay.
She says, can you say more about the Berkeley current example? Because your voice was dropping out.
Oh, it was? I'm sorry. I was just talking that the rock itself, now that I know where that is, this rock that we found here, they call it a dragon egg. That's what Bruce called it, or Robert, or both. Can't remember who coined the term, but it's a tube of rock that was coming right out of the stone. Now, if we think that this whole area has been sort of etched by stuff coming through, this material was harder and hard to etch out later. But you can see it's a tube. It's a tube of rock with a whole different type of. It's made of layers, just like you expect a Birkeland current to be made of. It makes a sound when you tap it, as Robert is testing here. And you can see the striations, or the spiraling of the rock in certain places. It's incredibly compelling. A little bit of paint to it. Yep. And I was actually worried about him breaking it,
So was I.
We were just tapping it lightly and it was making sound, but we were picturing it would just shatter it wouldn't take much. But you can see how it was part of the rock, and then this part in the front must have just fell off, just collapsed from its own weight and erosion over time. And you can see the pits that are in it, and the curve of the current. The right-hand rule is apparent in every single piece of it. And it's
in that video here. You see me holding the rock hammer, I guess, because I was the new guy on that tour. I had to carry the rock hammer all the way through. But on this past tour, I handed the hammer off to Dusty.
There you go.
And he's now initiated. So I guess next year he's going to hand it off to somebody. So somebody out there that wants to be on the tour, puts out the initiative, you'll be mentioned.
We can take you to these places. Look at this; they're just beautiful. Anyway,
does that go up the back of the hill of the butt? Does it go up the back? Does it form shape of the?
We could actually see there's actually a connection on the other side of the valley, like across from it. You can see where it went in. So now you can see the discoloration of where it went in. This was an exception. There's another one nearby too, where you can see another one that had gone in, but it's not nearly as perfect as this. You can just see it as a discoloration in the rock. This one was exposed. You know what I mean? Interesting, it's right along that little crack line too, because like we said, electricity likes to go in edges. So I found a little fault line right down the middle and down there. Or so it appears. This is me trying to okay, this is the landscape it's around. And over there in the far hills, you can sort of see a discoloration where it looks like it probably went in. This was part of a tube that went right across the valley through the rock.
Right over that hill was that larger mountain that was almost like an entire vortex, if you remember, Neil.
Yes.
We wish we would have been able to get out to that one, but we had to get rounded up and get back to camp.
Well, also the fact is that it might look really nice and peaceful, but it's only because you don't see the trees. You can see his clothes going there, but when you're in those things, I mean, me and Robert climbed to the top of one of them, and there was points where we were leaning and we had our feet, I wouldn't stand up fully tall. I would stay crouched down because I was worried about the wind gusting and throwing me right off of it. It must have been 50 kilometers an hour or faster. Just constant. And with gusts, and you were constantly trying to lean towards the wind so it didn't take you away. Not that it probably would have. I mean, we're fairly big boys, but it didn't. It surprised you a few times. You just stand there talking, and then suddenly, whoa!
Yep. And that's one of the reasons why going out into that area is more for the advanced,
Well, this is why we were concerned about bringing people other than friends with us. It's a little bit different. If you're bringing a bunch of friends, you're going to go on a trip. We'll laugh if Neil falls and breaks his leg. It takes us 2 days to get him out of there.
I almost broke my leg on that last tour. Remember when that boulder fell in on my leg?
I remember when you were trying to climb. I remember you were going, I'm going to climb up in there. We're like, no, you're not. I was like, I wouldn't do. I'm like, because it doesn't look like much. It's like it's only 12 feet. It's only 12 feet until you roll out of that hole and fall down, and then
smack your head on the solid
Yes,
rock,
exactly. I mean, I'll try to catch you, but no promises.
Don't worry, Dusty tried to do the same thing. He tried to climb up into that thing, and I was like, don't try it, dude.
I mean, I think it would be better if we just brought a drone and just flew it up
flew right up into that. Well, we got David Brown that just came on. Thanks for coming on there, David.
These are the first times, by the way, guys, we noticed the petroglyphs. This is me. I'm like, what are these? Oh my God. And I had to go over with the video. And of course. Anyway,
also,
hi,
hey, David, what's going on?
How's it going, my friend? He doesn't realize he's muted. He'll be fine. But you can see the perspective of where they were all located to each other. That's one of the reasons why it was good to get, I took lots of pictures, and obviously you could do that, but you want to sort of get a layout of where everything was in relationship to each other. Look at how old that one is. There's patina on top of that could be patina. And that's a connection between Mars and Venus. Hell. That's just crazy. I probably said the exact words on that exact video that we're. Anyway, so we just went over a bunch of stuff with the geology tour there, Dave, and mentioned you prominently. Don't worry, all good. Does anyone else have any other questions or anything like that? Because we're just wrapping up now. So there's that hole. Thought of it there, Matthew. It looks like a uvula or something.
Yeah, I actually called it the dragon's uvula in one of the Facebook
You
posts.
did, yes, I think you did.
Yeah.
That sounds dirty how you say that.
Uvula. Wait till you go see the giant's urethra. You think that's dirty? Yeah, those are those exact shots that Robert was just showing there with the pictures. A little bit after this, you see, you think those are not very big rocks, but look at how you're walking through it. It's like these are just giant boulders, and you just think it's like a riverbed or something, Nope. And some of these walls that we were looking at were near vertical. We were seeing the wind pile up layer after layer against this cliff face. That's what it looks like anyway. Obviously, it could be. See that type of thing? You can see, look at them just blasting backward. There's a cliff in the background. This is where we were starting to realize, see how Bruce is making a measurement of how vertical it is. And that had to, I mean, either the land flipped or this stuff is coming in, and you can see how the angles are slightly different in some cases between each event. So it led me to the idea that perhaps maybe this was all sort of building up and welding and building up. It's a cliff face, and then after that built up, it was worn down by subsonic wind, electrical fire going over top of it, smooth at the front of it, chevrons to it. Would be some sort of violent, writhing giant snake valley beyond that we were sort of looking at. Where the highway is, I guess. That's just speculation, though. So, lovely stuff.
But it sure is fun trying to figure it out.
It is. I would do anything to go back again. That's how amazing.
So we're going to try to have another one next year. We're going to try to maybe schedule it sometime around the Portland show. So, when everybody that's out here gathered in the States anyway, we'll try to maybe get them doing a little road trip. Maybe try to get something going on up in that area just to still develop the movement.
Oh, I would love, this is going to be great. We got Portland coming up. There's, a lot of the originals are going to be there.
Right.
So because that's where it all started. And I know that there's the Badlands up in that area. If Badlands, one of the two. in that area in Washington, Oregon area. That might be a good area to go explore. I see nothing. I mean, I put it in my videos enough, talking about it. So never been there.
What's happening in Portland?
EU Geology 2020.
Well, it's just EU 2020 is going to be up in Portland.
Sorry. EU Geology 2020. EU 2020, yes. Everything.
Regular EU 2020?
Yeah, it's all about hindsight.
Going to have a
cool.
back to the States next year.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Finally.
I didn't know that. I live in Portland, of course, so.
Oh, well then set up. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I've got that covered.
I think James does too. Like right beside you. So.
I'm in Seattle, but I made all the Portland ones that they had.
Oh, that's a nice little trip. Only a few hours. Washington's not that big a state.
Like actually a nice drive, actually.
You get a lot of people from California come up too.
Oh.
They might have made it Portland because that's where Dave is, and Dave Talbot. So.
Right.
I'm positive that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they usually had it. They had it in Arizona, Phoenix, a lot.
Making it easier on him to not.
It's the hotels there are very, very cheap. I think that's kind of like.
Oh yes, plus Don Scott's from Scottsdale.
Right. But I think they're going to do it to focus on so that Dave doesn't have to travel as much and.
Oh
recover.
Yes, definitely. I want to see his smile there, no matter what. It'd be worth it. That guy's. I mean, if you've ever had a chance to speak with him, there's something about his genuine, soft-spoken caringness that you can't emulate. It's just, it feels like he's speaking to you in a quiet desperation of you, like, but you should listen to this because it has such good words, you're
right.
You're just like, yes, I should listen. Thank you very much, sir. I will gladly.
What does he say at the beginning of the videos? He says, like, you have nothing to fear and nothing can harm you. Dude, when I was really depressed, I used to listen to that shit over and over again. I'd be like, yes, it's true. It's very relaxing. It's very relaxing. And he does. It's an amazing talent to be able to speak in a way that people can let their guard down and actually listen. And he's got that power.
Oh, yes. And
the intro to that is a spell. I mean, obviously.
Oh, well, don't worry. There's already enough people who think that they're into evil spells.
No. Spells can be good.
Oh, yes.
Good.
No, it's very clear at the conferences that he was kind of like the glue that put everybody together.
I find that something. Anytime someone says, "Neil, you're like a glue that brings together," I'm like, dude. No, I am literally following in the footsteps of people much greater than me. Right. These are just the most amazing views. If it wasn't for them, we would have literally nothing to talk about. We wouldn't even be here doing this. So if I could, I would love to bring stuff to him. In fact, I almost want to bring some to put together a geology tour for him, I know that he can't really go trompsing around anymore.
Right. My experience with David was when we were setting up our exhibit in 2017, and David was kind of walking around and seeing how everything was going. This was before everybody started pouring in the next day, and we had a rock set up, with the one with the two nodes in it, the really big one.
Yes.
He walked right up to that and just smacked his middle finger and index finger right on those two nodes. Like he was waiting to see that rock, because that's the picture I sent to Susan, just to show what's going on, and that started everything for me. And then he was really excited to see that, and just to see him actually plant his fingers on the rock just the way he did, it was like he was excited to see it just as much as I was excited to see him. And that it just made my whole trip.
Well, that's where I met you and Buddy and Heather and.
Yep.
Everyone right
DJ
there.
Even,
yeah.
So it was always that's where it all kind of started, and then we didn't. Me and Andy missed DJ. We were hanging out the whole time. Well, it's just what happens because we were roommates before. So it's like
Andy and I are going to go, okay, well, we basically caught up, and then we went and found the bar, and then just waited there, and everyone started showing up. It was like awesome. Because that's what it is. It's like, oh, I remember you. I remember you.
Right.
This is on top of one of the chevrons, by the way, guys. This is me and Robert there on these chevrons that is pointed out in all the videos. What they look like up close and personal, and they're not smooth at all.
No, it's pretty loose and shaly, and yeah, you can slip and really hurt yourself.
Yeah, really good, easy way to die. And we were like, we'll go to the second one. But when we got to the top of the first one, we were like, we are not going to the second one.
We're not going to climb the one that got the really steep slope. We're gonna not climb the tallest one either.
No, our eyes were bigger than our legs.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you're just looking out over this thing, and it had a little barrier too. We could sort of like hang out behind it with like a fence. But anyway, that was. I love taking these trips down memory lane. Every geology tour is like just seeing things you never saw before.
Those chevrons, are they plated against the side of the hill?
Yeah.
Obviously different material as well.
Like they're just smacked up there and welded right on, and then whatever was inside between it got squeezed, and all the air got squeezed out because it's kind of porous.
Yeah.
And and it's like then you have the flat iron like shield.
Like those are cars down there. If you're little white dots, so like we're pretty high up. That's the camp over there. Yeah, this is what it looks like, right up close.
And is it the same material from the floor, or is it just totally different material?
It looks different. It looks like it's been like compressed, but then it got welded to the side of this right here, like that was swept clean. It looks like the swell swept clean. That's that curved flat rock. This stuff was sort of welded up to the front of it, and you can see it's a different color completely. And it looks like material perhaps from the floor as something was running across the valley and shock waves were blasting up, and you can see it's even down below her. It was fairly interesting.
Yeah, amazing.
I remember how scared I was of this scene right here, because I realized we were passing. Did you see me just look over?
I remember I was like wondering, did anybody catch that?
Did anyone catch that? You know, I just moved the camera out of the way, like just right like that, like gone. But it was such a good shot. I was like, uh-oh. This is when you left me by myself. I had to stand out there for 45 minutes as everyone packed up, dropped me off by my car. I couldn't get my car any further down there. Like, that's like 5 miles off the road, guys. I got my friggin' Lancer all the way there across all this stuff. This is me complaining about it.
you definitely need a Jeep next time for
definitely
tourists.
And those chevrons are in the distance in those shots. I couldn't get over this, but I couldn't get over. Doesn't look like much, but trust me, just grinding your bumper into one of those things. But yeah, in the
that creek bed right there will stop most any cars with any low ground clearance. That's a road stopper right there. You need a Jeep to
I
get
couldn't
past
believe
that.
how far we got without it. I mean, Robert was outside the car, like, you know, and I'm sitting. It's a stick shift too, so I'm like going. He's going easy. Okay. Now go up. Okay. We're gonna shovel a little bit here so that your car's front end won't dig into the dirt, you know, and all that kind of thing. So
just go back to them chevrons. There's a geology in Suffolk called the Sutton Knoll, which is a fossil island basically, and that has this material sort of stuck to the side. But obviously they have it as erosion and things like that. But there's just no way to explain it. That's really interesting to see them chevrons literally just stuck to the side, because
that's exactly what they are. Yeah, and you can see if you look down to the this side that it looks like maybe something like was built up down there too, but blasted off, because you can see parts of chevrons that sort of look like they started growing out of the before it, but they didn't stay. Just incredible.
Neil, throw your opinion on this image I put in Skype, King Squash on the Gigapan link. Lay some eyeballs on that.
King Squash here, okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they think that's folding. Sorry.
I was just looking up some images of chevrons because I was thinking like chevrons on one side kind of look like hexagons, and then I found this image and I'm like, man, I should look more into this stuff.
Oh, when I think of chevrons, I think of Stargate SG-1. That's all. Or chevron is locked. But no, this is the type of landscape that I've seen before. That it appears as if almost the land, all of the land, was in a rubbery state, or sort of like a cohesive layers, but they were able to move. You know what I mean? Like a gel, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine waveforms. I mean, I look at audio samples all day long.
Oh no, I can totally understand. But you
yeah.
notice how that there's a layer that
true,
right along the bottom there, right here, that separates one layer from the other layer. Like it was vibrating, then blast, it was taken away, and then another layer was sort of vibrating on top just after it. I don't know, it's.
What about the right side? You see those kind of black drips that look like they're kind of like veins going through everything?
I was interpreting them as out of external, perhaps water running down.
One of the interesting things about synclines is that they don't seem to affect the land above them. I mean, you can say it's erosion or whatever, but no matter what's happening beneath with the synclines and folds, it just doesn't seem to affect the surface, above it.
Yes, actually, we've talked about the same thing of sometimes you get those building up of the columns, and then they're just leveled flat, and then continue building again. Like as if I didn't care what you were doing before, and I don't care now. It is that kind of conundrums that almost need to be explained, not with less power over time, but more power over less time, and that's and with a cohesiveness over much larger areas. Like when you note that, like there is an entire cohesiveness of the Tibetan Plateau, for example. I mean, we're talking something that spans from literally Singapore all the way to friggin' Kazakhstan, and it's one thing. Like it's impossible for you to think of it as a bunch of separate events. It's not even a separate bunch of mountains. It's like one event, one thing, and it's that type of. You see it with the Appalachians and the valleys that run up the coast of, and of course the mountains on the other side with the Rockies in North America. Those type of things where you're like, no, and of course you see them on the moon too. Chris can tell you. You see astroblems that just go off in the distance.
I mean, there's the parallel rays that come off of Tycho crater that are just totally only explicable through these types of events, I think.
Well, also the Tycho crater doesn't actually, the streamers don't actually end on the
center point.
Yeah, right? I find that was odd that Barry Setterfield didn't mention that when in his video on electrical cratering space news. I was like, he said it, and this is an example of I was like, are you sure there, big guy? Because I mean, I would usually trust you with my life, but I'll go to toe with you on this one.
There's a crater called Ptolemaios crater, which I think is really interesting for several reasons. One, it's very hexagonal, but second, it has this very prominent vent hole that I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Ptolemaios. Let me just pull that up real quick.
Yes.
I will.
See if I can find the picture.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, let me get that.
I'm just calling it a vent hole, but I feel like craterlet doesn't seem right because it's very consistent with a lot of flat floored craters. I mean, and Ptolemaios is very large.
You can see some striations, correction. Like, I mean, along the rim. Correction too. But you can see here's some, here, like this right here seems to be it's not completely flat. That's not flat.
Right.
Bumps across. But of course, I can see the sifting of sands here. This looks like landing of debris, but then you have something up here that looks coming from a little rock. Very unique landscape. Oh, I like the craters with the little drips in them.
So Neil.
Yes.
I got another idea here. So, oh, sorry, I thought we were changing, like going silent there for a second, so didn't want to do that. But I just got a idea here. So, mind if I share real quick?
Oh, of course, sir. Go ahead.
All right, here. Do this again one more time, and then we'll go to picture. So, this picture is that I guess it's called Blue Mountain. This from that highway scene that we pulled off on the 40.
Yes.
You remember?
Yeah, well, yes,
okay,
definitely.
So this is kind of like the area that we want to kind of get to for the intermediate tour, because it's got all the same features as Three Fingers, but it's just right off the highway. Because this is the viewpoint that I'm talking about. This is the Highway 40, and with outside of Dinosaur National Park, and this is that same formation that we talked about with the dikes. But you can see this whole thing, and this is the mountainside that we were just showing with the ebbed formations. But here's this road that goes right up alongside all of this, and then parks right up in the mass where all this shit just came together. So we're gonna try to park right up in here, and then you can, if I zoom in, there's all kinds of chevrons and etching and formations that would just be perfect for a geology tour, because it's just right in the middle of everything that just kind of happened.
There's definitely no way. Look at the.
And you can even see that something at the top of the mountain even got blown off. You know.
Yeah. Like debris lands behind it. It's crazy.
Right. And that's what led into all this stuff that you were talking about, which is feathers in the hogback. So this would be a perfect place to set up for, and it's like I said, it's just, that's about maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles to the road, and it's really, you can almost walk up to the canyons from here and get all these kind of pictures, because it's just nothing but chevrons after chevrons just stacking them. And over even here, I think over in this area, it almost looks like the chevrons are going in an inverted angle, because they're just smacked up on top of each other. It was just clumping so much that it actually bulges out, and they're actually bending backwards and then wrapping up over the mountain again.
It's really yes, cool. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, out here it almost looks like they're bulging out because it was smacking up so much. And you can see all these. So this whole front of this whole mountain, we could just make a geology tour, and it would just be easy because it's real close to town. People could have supplies. It's right near the Colorado border, so that people want to get other supplies.
Nice.
You know, and our store's right next to their stores, which is right on the same block. So
Isn't Moab where we can rent dune buggies?
You can rent dune buggies in Moab. You can rent Jeeps. We can almost. They also have up here, and I'm sure you can rent Jeeps up here too. But we probably bring them more business if we brought a lot of people up here. They'd have to rent.
Put my fat ass in the dune buggy, and I'm with you.
Oh God, right? Yes, I'd have to do that. That would be awesome.
Plus, my family has a lot of 4-wheelers and side-by-sides, because they like to do that kind of stuff, so we could probably get them into it and offer.
Oh heck yeah!
Give me a snowmobile and I'll be fine. Oh wait, wrong season.
My dad belonged to an off-road Jeep club when I was a kid, and I spent the first 5 years of my life bouncing around in the back of a Chevy pickup.
Nothing wrong with that.
So it's in my DNA, that whole deal. This is so obviously not related to water erosion. That's what's exciting about it. You just water doesn't travel upstream like that.
Clearly, when you got Split Mountain right here.
Like, how does that even happen?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, conventionally through it here, but something just blasted the shit out of it this way,
And this, and I love the fact that you can see the
dinosaur quarry is right there. I think, the quarry exhibit hall.
Well, that's yeah.
That's where.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I mean, a lot of this stuff. I mean, just going out there with you, Robert. I mean, I still have a piece of dinosaur bone sitting on my desk right here, and it's been polished up. And I was like, "What's this?" And he goes, "That's a piece of dinosaur bone." Like, and it was like, and here's another and another, and I'm like thinking, I was like, "What the heck happened? Do these dinosaurs just get literally blown to pieces and spread out over the area?" Like, you know, like that kind of thing.
Well, they all got washed up to that spot, you know.
Well, that's what I mean. And then some, but obviously that just has to be a conglomeration of them. But still,
yeah,
it's amazing. Someone asked a question about geode, so I'm looking for a proper geode. They asked about fault lines, and I happen to have that wonderful picture of a geode.
I know how you were mentioning the fault lines earlier with the electrical currents forming like quartz and then gold.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was an article that I read in geology.in or geologyin.com that where they found that like this secondary and tertiary faults is where they believe that after earthquakes it actually makes the gold from compressing water and temperatures and all that stuff.
Of course, we won't judge.
Yeah, we won't judge.
Good for you guys. Thanks for the data. We'll take it from here. You can stop your theorizing right now. We got this.
So you talk about gold formation. Do you see, is this the conditions in which nano diamonds could be formed as well?
There's actually 3 giant kimberlite pipes that come down into Canada, and that's where you find all the diamonds in North America. They're 3 giant positive strikes. Mm-hmm. And they're literally giant roots of like fulgurmites that are miles across is what they are. And inside that's where we find all the diamonds and uranium.
Here's an answer to your dinosaur bones things. The Silk Road originally was the Ivory Road, and they're from China or even further east to the Middle East. They traveled by camelback or whatever they could use constantly year-round for millennium, moving ivory from the east to the Middle East for thousands of years.
Yeah, and there's still islands of the darn stuff up in Siberia there. As far as I'm aware, no one has debunked that yet. I knew it was true when in the 70s. I don't know if it's true now. But yeah.
Neil, can I ask you about the old kimberlite pipes?
Sure.
Yeah, they start off big on the surface and small further you go down, don't they? They get narrower as you go.
That's correct.
So does that show that the transformation energy actually came from the Earth and went upwards?
Well, actually, direction is hard to tell except for in positive and negative strikes with, I mean, you can look up Lichtenbergers and you can tell, but usually things like that, in that it's what's known as it's completely different material. And it's like it would have to be something that was a lot of current sustained, but not like whether or not it was pulling up or pushing down would be, well, to be perfectly honest, it doesn't really do that anyway, because when you think about it, in these situations, especially when you're not dealing with metals, and this is very important that most people don't understand, is that when you're not dealing with metals have all of the ions locked together in a grid and the electrons are flowing. Doesn't matter to us. However, in the atmosphere, you would have electrons traveling in one direction, all the ions or other parts would be traveling in the other. So you actually, and then of course it would induce beside itself where you would have something going in the opposite direction. And this is where you get these tortured landscapes, especially, and you get, obviously, the right-hand rule comes into effect and you start getting torrents, giant like hurricanes over land that would build a plateau or something like that, like the Colorado Plateau. So this is these type of events are, whether or not it was positive or negative, is almost irrelevant compared to the amount of current that it was carrying that was changing the rock. It wasn't just enough to damage the rock, it was literally changing it into a different type of rock. And if someone has control of this.
So would that be more current
flowing
from space into the Earth, or the Earth upwards, or is it just equalizes out? Because they just seem pipes, they come at angles and they seem to get smaller at the bottom. So I just always wondered where.
Well, that's part of the Townsend discharge effect, that they go like that. I'll show you what I mean. Share my screen. Oh, I am sharing.
That's that waterfall effect, yeah, avalanche. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, the Townsend avalanche. Basically, the situation.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is the original ionization event. Is that in the ground?
Yes.
Because that's down there. Okay.
Yes, that would be the anode. Would be, in this particular case, would be the ground. We would have the cathode in this case would be something further into the ground. Technically, the cathode in these, remember, this is a layered onion.
Right.
So the cathode would be like the water layer, where you know that there's lots of connection to the electrons inside the Earth. I'm very happy to reach that if I can. And we see that effect with blue holes and stuff, where they dig down as soon as they hit the water level, or as soon as they hit like the hematite layer, they're done because they can get all the electrons they need now. We're good, thank you. And this is a similar situation why this is made for a dielectric breakdown. So it's not exactly the same thing. But you have a material not breaking down and ripping out, but the deeper it goes, you have an ionization potential down there. And it's also going to try to collect it from around the area as well. So there must be more than just a plug going to a pipe. It must have branches going off and roots in all directions. Although
always seeking the course of least resistance, right?
Yes, exactly. Looking for the quickest path to get to those electrons. And that would be what it's trying to do. Now, it seems these are like the Tharsis bulge, which on Mars, there's the 3 mountains that are across that. These, however, the ones on Mars are quite evidently blisters. On Earth, we happen to have, they're going into a mountain range of basalt. So that being what it is, basalt being easy to carry current and not just silicates, it was probably, it didn't seem to build up a lightning blister. We do have a blister, sort of like the Brandenburg Mastiff type of thing, but it's a lot lower than the ones on Mars. Like, those are mountains. These are not. These are very large hills, but they're wide and flat.
Neil, I just had a thought.
Does the electric branching always happen in two? If that picture that was just on, does that electric branching always happen in two? I mean, it happens in threes and stuff like that.
Oh no, it does. It does definitely happen in different things. It tends to want to separate in different directions if it's free to do so. But when it's in the ground, it's no longer free to do so. It's just looking for the path to. It's not unlike water trying to find its way down. That's basically.
I have a pretty good idea of a mathematical constant that shows that as well, and might offer us some idea. Whoever's surfing, if you want to type in. If you want to type in Feigenbaum's constant, it's Figen.
Okay. What was Feisenberg?
Figen. Baum. Constant. It should pop up.
Yeah.
Now look at pictures.
Okay. Boom. Here we are. Oh yeah, it does kind of have a similar effect there. I like that.
Right. Now what you're seeing here is a gradual decay, a rapid decay into chaos, based off of bifurcations, just equal bifurcations,
or
and it
slightly
rapidly
unequal bifurcations, but yes, I think.
Well, two.
Yeah.
Yeah, two.
But that's very similar to
two
Townsend discharge. You're right.
But what's really strange is that if Townsend discharge has something to do with this Feigenbaum's constant, then these layers of order appear in the sediment. If you see these white lines, those are actual layers where they only touch in 3 spots or 2 spots. So that could make gold. Those layers of ordering could turn it literally into gold because of the way that the current is moving through the materials.
I would have to say someone's already thought of this. I knew as soon as I went to it, numerical study of period multiplication and chaotic phenomenon in electrical voltage. So you have applied voltage for pink current density, and you start getting the Feigenbaum. Very nice.
Yep.
Very nice. So I can see that. I didn't even think that's a thing.
It leads me in the right direction. That's cool.
No, you're definitely nailed it. I mean, I wouldn't have figured this out. Right. Well, that's what you do. You see, that's what you find the mathematical harmonies in there that I'm not. I mean, sometimes when you look at it from a practical engineering perspective, sometimes missing the nuances that you can find.
Awesome.
We're trained a certain way.
Hey, everybody, I got to get going.
Well, yeah, we're good. We're good, my friends. We're good.
Hey, Neil, are we still recording? Is everything still being recorded? We're still live?
We are indeed. At least I hope we are. Let me check.
Okay. So can we do this? Can we do this then? So it'll be recorded. Explain to some people, because it's all relative and all relevant, what sun operating 1 to 2 magnitudes greater than it is right now, what that means for the people I would say, quote unquote, that are up in the cheap seat. you know what I'm saying? Can you explain that one more time just to kind of end the show?
Well, I suppose I could put it in a perspective of what you would see. It would seem like you would think that if the world would be brighter, but it wouldn't be because each of these interactions would so far be out of the norms of what we're used to. We would be blasting material off of all the bodies in the solar system. I mean, it would be a lot easier to imagine that at certain times, just like they say in the ancient scriptures or whatever, you'd be sitting there and a mountain would just disappear, or just be lifted off into space, or things like that. You would see those things. So debris would be carried away regularly from surfaces like it is on Io and thrown into space. Sulfur covers everything for the same probably transmutable reasons. But all those moons would be just being etched by Jupiter alone. If Jupiter had 100 times, and it already has 10 times higher than we thought it had, if it was 100 times more than that, it would just be. I mean, some of those planets, those moons might actually be ripped to pieces and turned into rings. Debris would be covering the interstellar medium between us and the sun, or the interplanetary medium, because us and the sun would be red, but you'd see prominences coming off the sun all the time. So it'd be like it was wrapped in a yellow serpent. And the aurora would be something that would reach to the heavens. You'd see it growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, and it would be visible night and day. You'd see a belt of lines going around the equator of the planet, and see them. It would look like ribbons going north to south. They're there today. We just can't see them, but be more powerful back. And everything that was tall would glow. The coronal would glow on top of mountains. You would see thunderstorms would, just like today they glow green, well, they'd all be green. Tornadoes would be on fire if you ever saw one. Everything would be 10 or 100 times worse. So thunderstorms were not something that you go, oh, it's okay, we're just going to hang out and just don't be afraid of the noise. No. There was a reason we ran for caves when those things came around, I think. Because, I mean, look at the San Rafael swell and the things that hit the edges of that. I mean, there could be wind that flew through some of these places at like 400 miles an hour. Bunkering down would be the only way to survive. And they'd be, I mean, we didn't have weather prediction, so it would be periodic. People who have monsoon seasons would fare better, I guess, because you'd have at least know what time of the year to go run for cover. That's how I picture it. I don't know if it's true or not, but orders of magnitude are crazy because the sun's corona would be so strong. I mean, we'd have to do the multiplication because it's a surface area, divide by pi. But
is order of magnitude always equivalent to the inverse square, or not always?
No, it's just an order of magnitude is just 10, like times 10 to the. That's all it really means. So, you know, if you have 6.2 times 10 to the negative third, that's, you know, meters. That's 6.3 millimeters. Yeah.
You're explaining it in numerical terms, but like my mind goes to surfaces, you know, topological surfaces. Sure. You know, I guess the plasmoid of the magnetosphere and things like that, and I don't know. That's just kind of what I.
No, okay. Well, it's real simple then. And if you imagined seeing a mountain, well, imagine an order of magnitude larger than that would be either an order of magnitude by volume or by height. So if it was an order of magnitude by height, it'd be 10 times higher. It was.
Yeah, it's basically scaling.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's basically a times 10 thing. It allows us to get that because we use that all the time when you see when Hawthorne said it is 63 orders of magnitude larger than the force of gravity. He's using the two constants and then looking at one's at negative 56 newtons and the other one's at, you know, so many billion newtons, and so you do how many zeros you run through to get from one to the other, and the level of distance between them is like 60 some odd zeros, so it is 60 some odd orders of magnitude larger than the other. And that's basically how you do it. And it's impossible almost mentally to deal with that, by the way. Like cannot envision something 63 orders of magnitude larger. That's like saying, okay, here's a flea, okay, and here's the planet Jupiter. That's the order of magnitude of 63 magnitude. So, you know, like, it's just impossible. Your brain can't deal with it. Too much. Anyway,
I have a question, Neil.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I don't want to be.
Well, so I'll try to be concise.
Of course.
I'm thinking here about all this electric marking that we're seeing all over the planet, and I'm wondering if we were able to sort of in a detailed map scan all of this electrical machining that we see on all these various scales, is it not a fingerprint? Could we not then reverse engineer the catastrophe that created and thereby understand more thoroughly how these things happen and how they could happen again in the future?
That would be ideal.
Planet? I mean, isn't that like, it's a fucking fingerprint,
right? That's the goal,
I'm sorry to say, but
the only thing is we don't understand how much pressure it was using and how thick the atmosphere was comparatively. Because remember, we had to scale the atmosphere the same as we scale and scale the density of rock and scale the surface. All these things have to be equal to what they would be in the correct scaling, if you know what I mean. Doing it relatively haphazardly, and in no offense to Dave or Jacob or any of the electrical experimenters out there, that's very hard because we'd have to understand that
we're not there yet. I get that.
Right, yeah. Like if it was an orange that we were trying to say the Earth is an orange, and the skin of that orange would be thinner than a hair, so you'd have to
actually history has some data for us.
Thank God.
Yeah, well, depending on how you view it.
Depending on how you view God,
Canyon,
Go on.
Like in the Grand Canyon, you go there and you look you can see the Cambrian level there, and the Cambrian explosion level there, and half of that column, geological column, it only goes up to the middle of that 250,000 years, a million years ago they call it, and from the Cambrian at 500 million and 250 million, and everything from the top of that, from 250 million, is gone. It's not there.
Right.
So
lifted away.
So you have but the question is, like you're trying to figure out what could do that. I mean, how big of a size are you talking about? But there is actually some idea of that, because in the crucifix and solar eclipse, which on the same day there was a lunar eclipse, which means that it was a full moon and it was on the opposite side. Now this solar eclipse actually covered made everything on the face of the Earth dark. Now the moon is capable of doing 200 miles from one end to the other to make a strip, but this thing got close enough where it made everything on the planet dark.
In a Ragnarok like type thing. What was this? Us going behind Saturn? I've heard that story, or was it a different time?
No, this is the year 37.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm blown away by this, because this is just after four years after Jesus goes, "I'm the Son of God, give me a cheeseburger." Sorry, that's just a joke on.
This is year 37, and this is what covered the whole face of the Earth. So you can calculate how close this thing had to be and how big it had to be in order to do that.
Well, Venus would still have to. I mean, I know Venus would have to pass between the Earth and the Moon to make a shadow that big.
Well,
from the sun.
like I say, yeah, but it could get, if it was close enough to the Earth, it wouldn't have to be that big as as far as in my head, I'm calculating this, but
of course.
I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, I know that it wouldn't cover the whole planet, obviously, because Venus is smaller. But to anyone on the planet, it would probably. I mean, if you weren't on the very top or very bottom of the planet, which you wouldn't be, it would cover you.
Right. But I mean, all the cities that reported, all the civilizations around there, it was like, there's no way the moon could possibly do that.
No.
So it had to have gotten close. And then, like I say, you can extrapolate how big this thing is. You can give it ranges.
I mean, it's just almost impossible to imagine that would be occurring during Roman times, and people would not be flipping shit. Like, you know what I mean? Am I? This is after Plato. This is after. I mean, we are into the thinking individuals, Odysseus-like level of mentality, not the fear-mongering people of yesteryear, but the people who were like, relatively. I mean, you paid your bills on the new moon type of thing. Like these are people who have invented science, almost Greek, that type of thing.
Yeah, and they had records and whatnot, but they're still, when something happens that you can't handle, your mind's gonna just blink you out and give you amnesia, and then you'll have these myths that come up and give you these memories.
You're blowing my mind that they could forget that, though. I mean, I'm not against the idea. It's just, but I suppose we did. I mean, no one knows how Rome got covered in dirt rocks. I mean, 40 feet deep. No one remembers that. I don't recall a single story about that, but yet it's true.
Well, you're talking about the Tibetan tap. It happened at one event, so you're talking about something that's fairly sizable.
Well, yeah, and we'd have to see. I mean, it looks like it affected everywhere from Rome to St. Petersburg. Like, I mean, Europe was covered in something. It seems, but it seems. Then you have the three disruptions in the archaeological
the 6 disruptions in the archaeological record that are in the historical, historical time, the King's List and all that kind of stuff. And then but the kind of action that after I started looking at it, I was realizing that a lot of almost all of the events are actually happening when it's the Earth's position that matters. It's in the equinox, or it's in the summer solstice that most of these events happen.
Well, this is actually very interesting because Julian talks about what happens during the happened during the equinoxes, and one of the things that he mentioned, now that he's referring to a period earlier than you're referring to in 37, but one of the things he mentioned during I'm calling it the Silver Age, or the age of where the capricious gods roamed around and messed with people. There was a debris field coming up from the sun that was a sheet, and then we had rings on our planet. So those two things interacting occluded a fair amount of the sky. And during the equinoxes, they became like an X. You know what I mean? You could see the whole sky because they would match up. You know what I mean? If you were close to the equator. Which is an interesting proposition for how people were able to see during some of those times. I just bring it up because that is that X idea is very odd, and the fact that you brought it up again is a quandary.
And the gravity kind of situation is, I think, the way that Jupiter plays with the 3 Trojan asteroid clusters.
Right.
That's really what's going on, because when the moon it went from L2 to L1.
Lagrange points?
Yeah. That's what happened. Basically, it was close to either at or close to a full moon, and then it switched to a new moon.
Huh. That's That's very interesting that someone could. The idea of the moon being able to move around willy-nilly, but this would have to be well after the rings anyway, because we didn't have the rings once the moon was there for any length of time. Take care of that pretty darn quick. I think that probably Venus pretty much cleaned up the inner solar system too when it finally settled down in that area. Its tail was constantly sort of sweeping the area.
Yeah, just like Jupiter and Saturn sweep up the stuff.
Those Trojans we were just talking about, yeah.
Yeah, in 40 and 50,000 years, basically the asteroid belt will be swept clean again.
Really? I didn't
40
know
and
that.
50,000 years, so all that stuff came from Mars, basically.
You know,
as far as I can tell.
You're blowing my mind there. Number one, because Sirius is really big, but some of these ideas that that it'll be cleaned up again reminds me of what we just saw recently from one of the postings in it was just basically saying that they saw a change within a human lifetime of some of these galaxies, and they shouldn't be seeing that, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, because this idea, psychologically, man is trying to expand the amount of time and the space to try to pretend that things happen far, far, far away.
Correct.
And this
yes.
idea of inflation the idea of inflation is nuts.
Of time, yes. It's a magical button that's basically able to say, okay, this was going on like this, then magically millions of years have passed, and now it's like this. I mean, it might as well just be but I mean, in the essence, it's just like waving a magic wand and saying, and then miracle, ta-da. Yeah. Like there's no
exact.
It's not scientific in the least, and
no. Yeah. And it makes the universe almost a billion times smaller. So if it's that small, or compared to what they're pretending it's to be, then you could see these things that Jim was talking about. And if you had temple records, which they said they did in the ancients, of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years of these movements, then they would know what the movements were, and they could use that to calculate, which they said they were doing. And then you could calculate precession from that, because they use the day as the standard measure of time, 1 day.
Right.
And they had water clocks so that they knew exactly when midnight was, so that they could do observations and know exactly what that time was, so they could do a 24-hour. So you could figure out with one day of observation, you could know how many days in the year that you had. And then you could extrapolate all these other things. And if you had the records that said that they did, then you could do all these other kinds of things. You could know what precession was, which changed, which did change, because in the Indic used 1 century. We use 72 years.
Oh,
but in Ptolemy's, but in Ptolemy's time, they used 304 years.
Well, wait a second. Why that our orbits were different? I mean, the first one makes a lot of sense. Going from 100 to 72 would be could indicate our change in our, I guess, the speed of the wobble, perhaps, or I don't mean the actual wobble. I mean wobbling of the whole system.
It's not mechanical. It's exactly what Jim was talking about.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
it's field from the outside.
Yes.
So I don't know how all that works, but that's what they used.
This, by the way, guys, if you're watching the screen, this is what this is where Robert wants to take people. This is the exact location on the map that he was talking about, and you can see the actual lines across the terrain there that were my little car down there.
And you'll see a lot of that stuff looks like the scab lands in Washington too.
I'm looking forward to going there. I hear good things. I mean, just looking at the pictures alone. Yes, you can go amethyst crystal. We'll like. All right, so let's see then. Well, I guess we're pretty much wrapped up. This has been a fantastic. Wow, it's been 3 hours. But guys, really, thanks for coming out. Robert did take off. This is us, of course. We're going to keep on going right until the very end, you know. But well, I've got to thank Robert for being so kind and showing up, and all the other guests for just being here. And thanks for the questions as well. It's been real. Oh, Marta, if you want to know if it's not mechanical, I have an entire thing, a special actually, and so does See the Pattern on Jim's theory with regards to precession. So I have a little thing there, and of course Gareth does a nice shorter one. But if you want to listen to us babble on about it, I did put something up. Try to make it easy for you. Jim's video is right there at the beginning, and I sort of put it there to explain all the work. But clearly, if you're having any trouble, those Jim Winiger's the name, and he's absolutely fantastic at the work that he's done. So. All right, folks, I'm going to bail. By the way, Chris from Take Back Space, I'm going to be in St. John down the road. So if you are doing something late at night and you want me to come on to join your show, just let me know, and I'll make sure that I got my laptop for it. I only have my laptop there, but I should be able to communicate with you enough. Oh, cool. It's the new moon was yesterday, so today it's going to be a very thin crescent, and the moon cycle is just starting. So probably it's going to start doing shows this week, like midweek or late end of the week. Oh, that's perfect. You just send me. So I'll ping you on Discord. Yeah, let's do it. Thanks everybody. It's been an awesome show. I've had a great time too, guys. It's been real. So send us off then with this wonderful little doohickey thing here. I have my outro. I love setting these things up. It's been so cool. Night, guys, and thank you very much for just being here.